Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Konoha. Super Naruto System, Super Fast Full Level. Chapter 21. Let's go home. Lee Jexuan naturally grabbed Tsunade's little hand. In his opinion, such a young child is no different from holding his own sister. Jia Xuanjin. Tsunade's cute little face couldn't help but two red clouds flew out. Mr. Yuxuan is so direct, how bold. Two people go home together. Just like mom and dad. However, at this moment, don't go, give me back the barbecue. A fat little hand grabbed Lee Jexuan's trousers. I want to eat kebabs, I have saved money for 3 days, It turned out that the little fat man from the Chu Daoist family woke up. The little fat man sucked on Lee Jexuan's leg like a fat leech, crying with snot and tears. For the people of the Akita family, fighting and face are not important, only food cannot be let down. I want to go home with Lord Jexuan, you bloody fat pig, let go. Tsunade even has the heart to kill. But at this moment, cuckoo, Tsunade's stomach suddenly growled. After all, she is a princess of the Chinsho family, and her diet is very regular. To put it simply, this girl is always hungry. I happen to be hungry too, so I'll treat you to a barbecue. Lee Jexuan covered his stomach, smiled and covered Tsunade. Tune it, let's go together. Junzan is so gentle. Facing Lee Jexuan's invitation, Tsunade subconsciously wanted to nod. However, at this moment, a person who should not have appeared suddenly appeared. Tsunade, why haven't you come home yet? Second Hokage, Sensho Kaijian came out slowly. His face was full of sadness that hesitated to speak, and he sighed helplessly after a while and shook his head. Tsunade, there is something I feel I need to tell you. Chinsho Feijian hasn't returned to the battlefield yet. Lee Jexuan frowned. What happened? However, this is no longer within the scope of his intervention. After bidding farewell to Tsunade hastily, Lee Jexuan still treated the little fat peer to a barbecue as agreed. Poo. The plump barbecue meat danced gently on the steel wire net, and the little fat man's eyes hadn't moved away since he entered the barbecue restaurant. It wasn't until he put the first piece of barbecue into his mouth that he moaned happily. My name is Chu Dao Pengji, thank you for inviting me to eat barbecue. Chu Dao Pengji, Chu Dao Fatty. Lee Jexuan nodded absently. Sure enough, he still cared a lot about what Chinsho Feijian said just now, and that unspeakably sad expression. Including the fact that he appeared in the village as very weird. According to memory, now should be the time when the First Ninja World War is in full swing. What exactly happened to make Hokage, Senshubanma, return to the village regardless of the battlefield? Pengji, do you know what is going on in this war? Lee Jexuan frowned, and asked almost subconsciously. As soon as he finished speaking, Lee Jexuan himself laughed. I am really crazy, Fatty Chudao is only a 3-year-old child, how could he know such a thing? I know. Fatty Chudao nodded as a matter of course, took a piece of barbecue and stuffed it into his mouth. You know, Lee Jexuan's eyes widened in surprise, grabbed Chu Dao's clothes, and hurriedly asked, what is this battle for? Scramble for the tail beast. Fatty Chu Dao nodded as a matter of course. Our Muya village has a total of 9 tailed beasts, so the 4 surrounding countries joined forces to snatch them. Snatch the tail beast. Lee Jexuan was dumbfounded. In his memory, the orthodox statement in his previous life stated that the 9-tailed beasts were actively distributed to other countries by the first-generation Senjujuma. But when he said this, Lee Jexuan immediately felt that this statement was full of doubts. You know, the status of tailed beasts in the ninja world is no less than that of Earth's nuclear bombs. The first generation of Konoha village and Uchiha Madara, and as the 2 strongest people in the world, what reason do they have to distribute tailed beasts to other countries? Another point, the time and reason for the death of the first generation did not have an accurate statement in the previous life. Or, in the world of Naruto, the history of 12 Xiaoqiang's grandparents is all vague. Which one is the truth? Lee Jexuan gritted his teeth secretly. Let me use these eyes to find out the truth. 2 million tails. Lee Jexuan looked at the bill, and tears of sadness flowed down involuntarily. Fatty Chudao is really good at eating. He just lost his mind for a while, and he ate a whole 3 yuan. The whole day's protection fee was collected in vain. However, it is not without gain. Boss Jexuan, I will follow you from now on. Seeing that Lee Jexuan's complexion was not good, Chudao Fatty quickly patted his chest and promised, in the future, if I hear any news from home, I will definitely tell the boss as soon as possible. The sky has completely darkened, and the sky is even more cloudy, and a heavy rain is about to fall. After Fatty Chudao left, looking at the dark rainy night, Li Jexuan couldn't help thinking. As the saying goes, the night is dark and the wind is high to kill people, maybe today is an opportunity. Stage task. Kill Saruta. Task reward. Kunai throwing intermediate. Task time limit. 1 week. Looks like it's time to visit an old friend tonight. At the back door of the silent babysitting center, the huge trash can opened its hideous mouth in the darkness, as if waiting for something. Suddenly, sharp quarrels broke the silence. What are you arguing about, mother-in-law? I'm just going to drink flower wine. The man roared angrily, without the slightest hint of guilt. Saruta lay on the bed, covering his ears impatiently, but the quarrel between men and women still reached his ears. Sudden, the woman went completely insane, screamed and picked up something and threw it out the window. Crash! The sound of glass breaking was extremely ear-piercing. The man roared in horror. You woman, are you crazy? There's still 100 million tails in there. Saruta, who was very irritable at first, jumped up from the bed almost reflexively upon hearing this. Money. Saruta is not a ninja, so he prefers money. Because only money can narrow the gap between him and the ninja. 100 taels. Saruta couldn't care less about cursing anymore, and hurried out the back door. The men and women upstairs were still arguing. On a dark rainy night, a huge black suitcase was quietly lying in the shadow of the street. Saruta was still a little confused at first, but when he saw the cute banknotes floating all over the outside of the suitcase, he would have nothing to doubt anymore. 1, 2. Saruta picked up all the scattered banknotes, and excitedly came to the slightly open suitcase. Baby, here I come. Saruta opened the suitcase violently, but there was no banknote he had been thinking about day and night inside. Waiting for him, there is only one sharp kunai. Flutter. Saruta fell powerlessly to the ground, bright red blood poured out from his neck, mixed with rainwater and rolled into the dirty sewer. 10 minutes later, several ninjas wearing animal masks slowly stared at Saruta's body. At this time, in the dilapidated ancestral house in Midway, Li Jexuan was already soaking comfortably in the medicinal bath. You smell like blood. Frowning, Madway threw Li Jexuan's clothes into the laundry tub. It's nothing, I just had a fight with my classmates today. Li Jexuan smiled and waved his hands, but don't worry, I will settle it. Or, this heavy rain will erase everything for me. Li Jexuan closed his eyes with a smile, and turned on the system. The task of killing Hachan completed. Do you want to receive a reward? Receive. It was still the familiar heat, and Li Jexuan could feel that his strength was stronger. The power of 5 people. In addition, Li Jexuan still has a total of 31 primary treasure chests that have not been opened. System, 10 in a row. Not surprisingly, Li Jexuan had 10 more green energy potions. Open again. Another 10 energy potions. Open again. The green light made Li Jexuan a little dazed. Could it be that there are only energy potions in this primary treasure box? Li Jexuan muttered greedily to himself. It's not that the energy potions are bad, but if there are only energy potions, it's better to just call it the energy potion box. While thinking, Li Jexuan opened the last treasure chest. In fact, Li Jexuan has given up any hope. However, a faint fluorescent light flashed, and a distinctive scroll was revealed. Rachel Scroll. Rachel Scroll. Use this scroll to master the S-rank ninjutsu, Reikiri. Simple description, but the content is shocking. It's just a primary treasure chest, but it can actually produce S-level ninjutsu. Study. Li Jexuan took out the scroll and chose to study without hesitation. In the next second, Li Jexuan's spirit suddenly jumped into a thunderstorm. Boom. There was lightning and thunder, as if the world was about to be torn in half by this shocking and thorough thunder. But in the continuous heavy rain, Li Jexuan found that there was a small figure standing in the wind and rain. Kakashi. The dazzling silver-white hair is like lightning in the dark night. This turned out to be Kakashi in his youth. What is he doing here? Li Jexuan's eyes widened involuntarily, as if he was watching a movie that was infinitely close to reality. He could even clearly feel the wetness of the rain and the fury of the thunder. As the wind blew, Kakashi's silver-white hair shook slightly. Zizizi. The light blue thunder beat. Kakashi lowered his hands, and a group of dazzling blue thunder suddenly burned in his palms. In the next second, Kakashi turned into a thunderbolt, and rushed towards the sky like a bolt of lightning. The dazzling blue thunder soared into the sky, like a thunderbolt ascending into the sky. Just at this moment, a huge pure white lightning fell fiercely in the sky. Li Jexuan held his breath nervously, time seemed to become slow. But in the end, the pure white lightning and the violent blue thunder collided fiercely in this dark rainy night. Boom! The huge roar made the whole world become silent. The sky trembled, and the huge pure white lightning suddenly separated from the middle, turning into two small white lightnings and landing. Cut it off. It actually cut the lightning. Li Jexuan trembled involuntarily. Kakashi, cut the lightning. But at this time, the blue thunder that cut through the lightning continued to move forward without stopping, until it pierced through hundreds of giant trees before slowly stopping. This is Rachel. When Li Jexuan understood this, everything in front of him began to slowly dissipate, until the silver-white messy hair disappeared from sight, and Li Jexuan slowly came back to his senses. This scroll actually made him experience the birth of Rachel. Ugly Mao Shin. With a subconscious seal, tiny light blue thunderbolts began to appear in Li Jexuan's palm. Zizizi. Even in the clay pot, Li Jexuan subconsciously pushed his palm, Lakey. A whole set of movements are flowing, as if born. The light blue thunder slowly gathered in Li Jexuan's palm to form a dark blue blade, but when the blade was half formed, he suddenly felt an uncontrollable tiredness and emptiness welling up in his heart. Chakra. Exhausted. The shortage of chakra made the dark blue blade tremble unsteadily. However, Li Jexuan could only look at the half-finished Rach blade stupidly. Finally, the half-handled thundercutter exploded, turning into hundreds of sharp and small electric currents, making ear-piercing screams. Hundreds of currents, like a blooming silver bouquet, pierced through everything. Li Jexuan couldn't help opening his mouth wide. Chidori. There has always been a saying that Chidori is a weakened version of Reikiri. Because Sasuke's research on Reiki is not deep enough, Reiki's voice is low, Chidori's voice is loud, which means that Chidori's energy is not concentrated and the chakra is not condensed and compressed enough. But when it comes to Li Jexuan, it's just the opposite. Because of the existence of the system, Li Jexuan's understanding of Rachel is no less than Kakashi himself. However, the two rare chakra hindered Rachel's completion, causing Rachel, who was only half completed, to mutate into an uncontrollable Chidori. He was lucky enough not to kill Li Jexuan. After realizing it, Li Jexuan couldn't help being startled into a cold sweat. Now he understood why the primary treasure chest could produce S-level ninjutsu. This scroll is different from the shuriken throwing rewarded by the system. The scroll is only responsible for teaching you how to learn ninjutsu, regardless of whether you have the chakra and ability to release ninjutsu. It's really cheating. Li Jexuan couldn't help complaining secretly, but fortunately it was Lakey, at least he could turn into a Chidori and release it. If it was a crap like Fengdun Spiral Shuriken, Li Jexuan would probably be dead. In the silent park, crystal dew slowly slides down from the green branches and leaves. Tick. Light blue electric arcs danced lightly in both palms, barely forming the shape of a blade. Chidori. Li Jexuan tried to push these unstable electric arc blades far away. Zizizi. But before Li Jexuan's palm moved a centimeter, these electric arcs exploded abruptly, turning into dozens of sharp currents and splashing around, piercing through the trees and destroying the ground. Failed again. When Sasuke first learned Rachel, although he was not proficient enough to do it. However, it has been able to fully display the characteristics of Lakey's thrust penetration, piercing through the huge water storage bucket with one blow. But as the saying goes, it is easy to go from frugal to extravagant, but difficult to go from extravagant to frugal. After Li Jexuan fully understood Lakey's secret, it was very difficult to create Chidori one level lower. Lakey is the only one taught by the Lakey scroll, and Li Jexuan can only rely on Li Jexuan's own comprehension if he wants to create 1,000 birds. However, Li Jexuan could feel that he was very close to success. The sun gradually rises. Chidori is a powerful A-level ninjutsu after all. Don't be in a hurry, it's time to go to class. Boss, there seems to be something wrong with the battlefield ahead. As soon as he returned to the classroom, Fatty Chu Dao leaned close to Li Jexuan's ear and said mysteriously, I heard that 2 important figures died on the battlefield. Lee Jexuan nodded absent-mindedly, and couldn't help turning his head to look around, but he couldn't find the familiar figure after searching for a long time. Tsunade doesn't seem to come to school today. Realizing that Lee Jexuan was absent-minded, Fatty Akadao lowered his voice and continued, and I heard that these two important figures seem to be related to Tsunade Haim. What? Lee Jexuan turned his head violently, grabbed the fat man Chudao, and asked viciously, you mean, these two people are related to Tsunade Haim? Who are they? Fatty Chudao was taken aback by Lee Jexuan, and shook his head again and again. I don't know, I only found out after listening to the adults chatting at home. Hearing this, Lee Jexuan pondered and slowly lowered his head. In fact, even if Fatty Chudao didn't say anything, Lee Jexuan could vaguely guess it. He discovered this in his previous life. Like Mitwei, Tsunade's closest parents, the only heir of Senjujuma, has no voice in the original work. From the looks of it, Tsunade's parents should have died in the first ninja war just like Matwei. In this way, it makes sense. The sad but hard to speak expression on Chinshuban yesterday. It is indeed a difficult thing to tell your granddaughter about the death of your parents. This is war, everyone may die. In fact, Lee Jexuan is very clear about this truth, but because Konoha is strong enough and the village looks as peaceful as it used to be, most people ignore this point. But for the first time, even though Lee Jexuan was thousands of miles away, he could still smell the blood on the battlefield. Thinking of this, Lee Jexuan couldn't help worrying about Tsunade again. That strong and cute little girl should be able to survive, right? While Lee Jexuan was thinking, Tsunade opened the door and walked in. Tsunade. But unlike Tsunade, who was full of vitality in the past, the beautiful and lively brown eyes in the past were not the slightest bit of spirit. Only when he saw Lee Jexuan, they barely had a little more light. Distressed. Lee Jexuan's first reaction was distressed. Tsunade lost her parents at such a young age, but after that, she has even more to lose. Between the pillars of thousands of hands, between the doors of thousands of hands, until all her relatives in this world are gone, even her boyfriend will die in her arms. If you want to select the top 10 tragic characters in Hokage, Tsunade can definitely occupy one of them. Thinking of this, Lee Jexuan couldn't help hugging Tsunade into his arms. The warm chest was imprinted on the cheek, and Tsunade couldn't help crying, Jia Xuanjin. It's okay, you still have me, I'm always here. Lee Jexuan gently stroked Tsunade's soft blonde hair, and comforted him, cry out, it will be fine if you cry out. Tsunade couldn't bear it anymore. Leaning quietly in Lee Jexuan's arms, 2 lines of tears slowly flowed down. The beauty sheds tears, the hero frowns. Even the teacher couldn't bear to interrupt this silent and beautiful scene. However, at this moment, an exaggerated laugh suddenly kicked open the door and broke in. Ha ha ha, Master Jiraiya, it's time to make an appearance. Ha ha ha, Master Jiraiya has appeared. Jilai with the white afro also burst into the class laughing, and scratched his head nervously after realizing that the atmosphere was not right. Why don't you talk? Are you too happy? This guy. Everyone couldn't help feeling speechless. Is this guy really stupid or fake? Lee Jexuan couldn't help shaking his head slightly. Jiraiya, you are destined to be a tragedy. No wonder I loved Tsunade all my life, but I didn't dare to say half a word of love. To make matters worse, Jiraiya, who broke in, saw the conspicuous Tsunade at a glance. The pear blossoms fall in the rain, and the pitiful place is even more pitiful. For some reason, Jiraiya's heart beat fiercely as if it was destined. Hi, my name is Zilaya. Jiraiya laughed and stretched out his hand towards Tsunade. Hobbies are writing novels and admiring beautiful girls. I don't know if these guys with explosive heads are a little nervous, but even in this situation, Jiraiya still introduces himself to Tsunade in Lee Jexuan's arms. Who cares if you die? Tsunade was completely enraged, raised his fist, and slapped Jiraiya's toad face hard. Ever since, under Tsunade's strange power, Master Jiraiya, who just went to school on the first day, just passed out like this. However, no one felt sorry for him. This kind of fool just needs to give him a good beating. Lee Jexuan shook his head helplessly. It seems that this life, Jiraiya will also live under Tsunade's iron fist. What a sad man. However, after such a commotion, Tsunade's mood seemed to calm down a lot. At least after exercising, there was a little more blood on his face. Seeing this, the elephant mask in the dark corner couldn't help but nodded slightly, turned around and flew away. 5 minutes later, in the mansion of the Thousand Hands clan, Chinsho pinched his chin between the doors, and sighed softly. If this is the case, then let them go. As long as Tsunade can be happy, even the old-fashioned Senju Tomona is willing to make certain concessions. Taijian, are you sure? But at this moment, sitting in the shadow among the pillars of thousands of hands, suddenly said coldly, maybe they all thought I was dead, I think maybe it's me now. It's just that before Sensho Zujian finished speaking, Sensho Feijian interrupted with a flustered smile. Brother, although my strength is not as good as yours, but in terms of escaping, I created the Flying Thunder God technique. Hearing this, Chinsho Zujian was silent for a while, then nodded lightly, I see. Don't worry, brother, I will definitely make them pay for it. Senju gritted his teeth fiercely, stood up abruptly. Danzo and Sarutobi Hiruzen followed closely behind. For the dead nephew and niece, but also for Tsunade, and even my brother. When the number 1 ninja returns to the battlefield quickly, it is destined to cause a huge storm. When Konoha was completely enraged, a large number of Anbu left quietly. At the same time, several Anbu are also occupying the back door of the babysitting center. This guy deserves to die. Looking at Saruta's corpse, Anbu, who was wearing a hippo mask, curled his lips in disdain, and spat out a mouthful of thick phlegm. However, suddenly a hand stretched out and firmly caught the mouthful of sticky phlegm. Wearing a raccoon mask, Anbu wiped off the sticky phlegm on his hands without haste, and said coldly, don't destroy the scene, it doesn't matter what kind of person he is, our mission is to find the murderer. As he said that, Tanuki Anbu knelt down, inspected Saruta's body carefully, and muttered to himself suspiciously, the murderer first used this guy's greed to trick him out. We all said that someone slipped a letter through the door. It was the letter that told us to do this. As long as we do this, we can get 5 taels. Tanuki Anbu believed that the couple who lived upstairs were telling the truth. They didn't know about all this, they just became accomplices out of greed. After deceiving Saruta, use this mechanism box to shoot kunai and kill Saruta. In order to achieve the goal of not going out and killing people. Tanuki Anbu walked up to the suitcase, frowning involuntarily, but there is no mechanism in this suitcase. Also, the shot kunai also disappeared. Tanuki Anbu pinched his forehead, secretly distressed. Hippo Anbu curled his lips in disdain. That's an ordinary box, can you hide a person in it? They have checked, deduced many times. But Tanuki Anbu was shocked when he heard this. Could it be? But I quickly shook my head again. This suitcase is too small, let alone an adult, even a child can't fit it in. If it's a baby, maybe it's barely. However, that kunai pierced Saruta's throat, which is impossible for an ordinary adult, let alone a baby. In this way, there are only organs. However, after rummaging through the suitcase, I couldn't find any mechanism. Kunai, who disappeared inexplicably, has no clue. This case seems to have fallen into an endless loop. Call, it will be a success this time. In the silent park, Li Jexuan stared closely at the big tree in front of him. His palms were slightly lowered, and the blue flames of chakra condensed in his palms. Zizizi. Light blue arcs began to dance between Li Jexuan's palms, combined, and slowly condensed into a blade. Chidori. Li Jexuan roared and pushed out his palm. The light blue lightning is like a war horse receiving orders. Enveloping Li Jexuan himself, it turned into a flash of lightning, piercing straight through the big tree in front of him. When Li Jexuan came back to his senses, he had already crossed a distance of nearly meters in an instant. Zizizi. Li Jexuan slowly withdrew his palm from the burnt tree hole, and the light blue arc was still dancing on the wound in the tree hole. Suddenly, the whole tree trembled and turned into a piece of coke, and collapsed. Li Jexuan's Chidori is slightly stronger than Sasuke's, because Li Jexuan did not reduce the quality of Reikiri, but only reduced the quantity of Reikiri. Change the standard Thundercutter blade into a smaller one. To be precise, this should be called Shaoleki, not Chidori. Ha, it worked. Li Jexuan let out a long breath and fell to the ground. Although little Rachel is strong, the chakra that can be consumed is also an astonishing number. Chakra at the level of Li Jexuan's ninja can only barely be released once. After releasing it once, Li Jexuan will lose any ability to move due to exhaustion of all his strength. That is to say, if this trick is not a last resort, it must not be used. However, he finally developed his own technique. In this world, it can be regarded as a whole card for self-protection. Li Jexuan slowly closed his eyes with peace of mind. Jexuanjin, what's wrong with you? Don't scare me. In a blur, Li Jexuan seemed to hear an anxious voice calling him. Slowly opening his eyes, he found that Tsunade was hugging him, crying in a sad low voice, "Please, don't die." "Silly girl, what are you crying for? I thought you were going to die." While talking, Tsunade cried out, "I'm really scared, I'm afraid of losing you again." Li Jexuan slowly stretched out his hand, wiping the tears from the corners of Tsunade's eyes. "I'm fine, I'm just too tired." Tsunade froze for a moment, threw himself into Li Jexuan's arms fiercely, and smiled through tears. "You are not allowed to laugh at me, and..." After thinking for a while, Tsunade suddenly raised his head and looked at Li Jexuan seriously. "You can never leave me." Hearing this, Li Jexuan couldn't help feeling a little warm in his heart. He found that Tsunade was becoming less and less like Tsunade. For him, the current Tsunade is no longer a stereotyped cartoon character in anime. It's a living person, embracing him, the warmth of real existence. At this moment, Li Jexuan really understood. Tsunade has become an indispensable existence in his life. It turns out that Tsunade loves me. And I love her too. Li Jexuan smiled and hugged Tsunade tightly into his arms. "Believe me, I will never leave you again in my life." Tsunade curled up happily in Li Jexuan's arms, hugging Tsunade's voluptuous waist. Li Jexuan secretly swore, "Besides, no one can take you away from me. Whether it's off, or it's coming." Lying quietly in the woods with Tsunade arms around her arms, the fragrance of the vegetation is intoxicating. Tsunade had fallen asleep in Li Jexuan's arms. During this time, she was too tired. In the silent woods, cute boys and girls embrace each other quietly. On an exceptionally dense tree, the trunk of the elephant mask involuntarily sticks out the leaves, but after thinking about it, he shrank back. "Forget it," Togama-sama also said, "let Tsunade-sama be happy." Even Anbu, who has always been known for his coldness, was unwilling to break it with his own hands when faced with such a warm scene. Character: Li Jexuan. Chakra level: Ninja basics. Ninja tool: Time and Space Kunai. Items: 30 bottles of energy potion. Master ninjutsu: Shaoleki A-. In less than 2 weeks after coming to Naruto World, Li Jexuan already has such a family background. Li Jexuan himself is satisfied. However, reality tells Li Jexuan that this is far from enough. The ninja war broke out completely. Because of the death of Tsunade's parents, the most powerful Konoha in one village broke out completely. With the power of a village, fight the entire ninja world. Konoha Onbi, all composed of elite ninjas, raged on the battlefield, taking away one fresh life after another. Shinshō-Fagian also used the flying thunder god to shuttle across the battlefield, killing the enemy in an instant. But that doesn't seem to be enough. When the shadows of the other 4 villages end, without the absolute power of Senju Zujian's final decision, Konoha suffers a heavy loss. As a result, even Konoha's village began to gradually generate pressure. Only Ninja Academy still maintains such a carefree peace. Today, I will teach you the transformation technique, one of the most basic 3 body techniques in ninjutsu. As he spoke, Yamada Jiji uninhibited, transformation. There was a poof, and the smoke was lingering, and Yamada next turned into 1,000 hands. Although the amount of chakra did not change, it was enough to bluff people just by looking at it. 3 seconds later, Yamada next lifted the transformation technique, and nodded with a smile. Everyone can try it, the first time is usually very difficult to succeed. Transformation. Li Jexuan's hand knot was not sealed, and the chakra flowed all over his body. After the smoke lingered, Li Jexuan turned into Yamada's second, lazily pushing the Konoha forehead protector on his forehead. "Yo, Yamada, isn't it difficult?" Li Jexuan's virtuousness intelligence is 6 times that of ordinary people. It can be said that they are geniuses in the true sense, even compared to Orochimaru. Kakashi and the others are not inferior at all. The simple ninjutsu of avatar technique can be learned just by reading it once. Of course, Li Jexuan is not the only one with such talent in the whole class. Tsunade, Orochimaru, Jiraiya, including the Duanya who was knocked down by Lee Jexuan's punch, all succeeded after only 1 or 2 attempts. After learning the avatar technique, Lee Jexuan was not idle. He chased him to the office and asked Yamada to demonstrate the avatar technique and the substitute technique in turn. The closer the war is, the more pressure Lee Jexuan feels. After just 1 day of study, Lee Jexuan has already mastered the basic 3-body art of ninja. Jia Xuanjin, you can actually graduate from the ninja school now. Yamada Gigi looked at Lee Jexuan with a strange face. He had never seen a boy with such talent as Lee Jexuan. At only 2 years old, he already possesses a ninja level of chakra reserves. In addition, the 3-body art can be learned after reading it once. In addition, he even practiced kunai throwing very skillfully. Yamada Gigi once saw with his own eyes that Lee Jexuan pierced through the wings of mosquitoes hundreds of meters away with only 1 kunai. Even if this guy started practicing in the womb, he was only 3 years old. A 3-year-old ninja, this is too scary. If the 2-year-old ninja is announced, it will definitely attract the attention of the entire ninja world. But Lee Jexuan didn't plan to do this, because the title of genius is too heavy. In the near future, a real genius will appear in Konoha. Graduated from Ninja Academy at the age of 5, promoted to Zongnin at the age of 6, and became a Jonin at the age of 12. During this period, he even independently created an S-level ninjutsu that can cut through lightning, Reikiri. He is Hitaki Kakashi, a genius who has never appeared in the history of Konoha. But even so, Hitaki Kakashi has never won a few battles in his life. Either defeated or tied, people give nicknames, Hitaki. Even to save the world in the end, he just followed his apprentice to make soy sauce. Except for Obito's eyes, the sense of presence is almost zero. Forget it, I'm not ready to graduate yet. Lee Jexuan shook his head slightly. With my current strength, if I rashly go to the battlefield, I will just die. Looks like you know that too. Yamada next nodded and said, Konoha has already started sending genin to the battlefield. The brutality of this war can no longer be described in words. Lee Jexuan nodded slightly. That guy from Madway said it yesterday. Xiao Jexuan, during this period of time, we ninjas will go to the battlefield in batches during this year. At that time, I will send you and Xiao Dai to the baby care center where I found you. The boss of that house, Tsuruta, has a very good reputation. Madway, this fool. Lee Jexuan shook his head. Even though he didn't know where he was thrown out from, at least he should know that the boss there, Tsuruta, is already dead. Sure enough, no matter what, you can't let a fool like Midway go to the battlefield. Lee Jexuan turned his head, smiled and hugged Yamada Gigi. Senior teacher, since I have already learned the 3-body technique, should you teach me something new? Hearing this, Yamada Jizuru shook his head with a wry smile. He was really on board. However, the 2-year-old shinobu. This may be the most correct investment in his life. I see, I will teach you all the ninjutsu I know, except for the family secrets. As he talked, Yamada Gigi showed a troubled expression on his face. But there is only 1 year, if you don't buy scrolls, it will be too difficult to learn. Yamada is followed by the elite Chunin, who has mastered 1A level ninjutsu, 3B level ninjutsu, and more than 20 C level ninjutsu. As for D level ninjutsu, there are countless. It's a pity that most of them are family secrets. The next thing Yamada can teach Lee Jexuan is 1B level ninjutsu and 10C level ninjutsu. Before learning ninjutsu, I want to test your chakra attributes. Yamada next smiled and took out a chakra test paper from the drawer, proudly said, the reason why I have mastered so many ninjutsu is all because I have 2 chakra attributes, namely tearing wind and warm water. Saying that, the chakra test paper in Yamada Gigi's hand suddenly had a crack, and then became wet again. Chakra itself is innocuous, and the chakra test paper can only check your own affinity for other chakra changes. Yamada next smiled and handed a piece of chakra test paper to Lee Jexuan. To a certain extent, the more changing attributes, the higher your aptitude. Yamada next is looking forward to several changes in Lee Jexuan. In fact, Lee Jexuan is also very curious about his chakra attributes. As soon as he took the test paper, a small blue electric arc suddenly flashed, leaving traces of electric shock on it. A lightning bolt. Immediately afterwards, the test strip suddenly exploded. Yamada picked up the fragments of the chakra test paper in the next confusion. This one is water. This one is fire. Yamada next muttered louder and more urgently. Wind, earth, yin, yang. How is this possible? A total of 7 changes. Yamada looked at Li Jexuan blankly, and only uttered 2 words after a while, monster. In the following days, Li Jexuan lived a fulfilling life. During the day, I study the history of the ninja world at the Ninja Academy. After school, I open a small stove to learn ninjutsu at Yamada's second place. At night, I go home to practice body arts with Miteway. Although it was hard work, Li Jexuan could feel that his strength was improving rapidly. Well, today's Tuliubi release is not perfect. Li Jexuan walked into the house while thinking, next time try to increase the chakra by about 1/5. Thinking about it, Li Jexuan took off his clothes and casually looked at Miteway. Uncle mate, what shall we do today? Push-ups or sit-ups? To Li Jexuan's surprise, Miteway shook his head with a serious face. No training today. Li Jexuan knew that once the special training of the Mat family started, it would be rain or shine. What is it today? Xiao Jexuan, your talent is very good. Li Jexuan shrugged indifferently. Miteway didn't need to tell him, he knew about it. Even if there is no system, the spirit of his 2 lives is much stronger than ordinary people. So, I think it's time to teach you this physical skill. While talking, Miteway took out a bright golden scroll from his arms. Could it be the 8-door Dunjia? Before taking the scroll, Li Jexuan couldn't help swallowing wildly. Li Jexuan doesn't think about the things that can make Miteway so precious, except for the Baman Dunjia. With trembling hands, Li Jexuan uncovered the bright golden scroll, and the conspicuous 8-door Dunjia made Li Jexuan hold his breath. It turned out to be the 8 Gates Dunjia. Although Li Jexuan believes that Miteway will not hide his secrets, one day he will pass on the 8-door Dunjia to him. But when this day really came, Li Jexuan was still too excited to control himself. Although it is said that Baman Dunjia is only an A-level ninjutsu. Even Kakashi's Rachel is not as good as. But the meanings of the 2 are completely different. Rachel may be very strong, but it is a lot of mediocrity among the forbidden S-level ninjutsu. For ordinary ninjas, Baman Dunjia may be a tasteless way to kill 800 enemies and harm 1000, and it is only listed as an A-level ninjutsu. But for the ninjas like Madokai and Lock Lee, who are talented in hard work, Baman Dunjia is undoubtedly the forbidden technique among the forbidden techniques. Otherwise, there wouldn't be Yi Kai's dominance of kicking Ludao Madara. Open, break, live, hurt, stop, scene, startle, die. Opening the catalog, 8 gates are in it. Flipping further, you can see the lotus on the outside, the lotus on the inside, the peacock on the front, the tiger on the day, and the thundering Yi Kai all lying quietly behind the corresponding open door. This is a complete set of inheritance, and Li Jexuan has reason to believe that this is the most precious physical inheritance in the Naruto world. No matter who gets such a precious thing, he will never give it up for a second. But Miteway handed him over to Li Jexuan, an abandoned baby whom he had known for less than 2 months. Why? Li Jexuan raised his head involuntarily, and the corners of his eyes were a little sore. Why do you trust me so much? However, Miteway did not answer Li Jexuan, because he had already turned around and went to boil the herbs. Perhaps in Miteway's view, such inheritance is a matter of course. Fool. Although moved, Li Jexuan is not a young child after all. Since you want to repay Miteway, you can't do it without strength. After adjusting his mentality, Li Jexuan seriously studied the scroll in his hand. According to the plot in the manga, Xiao Li could already open 5 doors when he took the Chunin exam. Although the price of opening the 5 doors is disability, Li Jexuan believes that with his current physique no less than that of Chunin, he can at least open 4 doors. The main test of the Baman Dunjia is the body of the caster, but the use of chakra is much simpler. The first way, the gate of life. Li Jexuan ran the chakra in his mind according to the cloud map on the scroll, and every time the chakra moved forward, the slight tingling pain increased a little. This kind of feeling is a bit like the pulse in the Chinese legend. When Li Jexuan completed the operation according to the cloud map, the tingling sensation reached its limit. At a certain moment, Li Jexuan only felt his head explode. After regaining consciousness, both speed and strength have been improved in an all-round way. Shungmin, with 100% brain development, allows him to exert % of his body's strength now. This feeling is as exhilarating as if the genetic lock has been unlocked in the legend. Li Jexuan clenched his fist lightly, able to control his body 100%, which made him have an illusion, he seems to be omnipotent. Li Jexuan also opened the next 3 doors very smoothly. Shuman keeps him from getting tired anymore. Shungman and Injuryman further increase his strength and speed, and even inspires a faint green chakra flame. Do you want to take advantage of the trend and attack Duman? Li Jexuan felt that his strength was at its peak. How about giving it a try? The sooner he becomes stronger, the sooner Li Jexuan can help Meitwei. Thinking of this, Li Jexuan, who has always been cautious, couldn't help but make up his mind. But just as he was about to go all out and rush open Duman, a broad palm pressed on his shoulder. Enough. Hearing this voice, Li Jexuan finally calmed down. Even though Lok Li had trained hard for so long, he became disabled after opening the door at the age of 15. For such a hasty attack, the consequences would be disastrous. Call. As soon as the breath is relaxed, the wound is automatically lifted. As soon as the wound was lifted, Li Jexuan was surprised to find that he couldn't lift any strength in his whole body. He fell to the ground involuntarily, and a little blood began to ooze out from under his fair skin. Is it so difficult just to hurt the door? Li Jexuan could only feel his whole body wailing, like the feeling of an old bicycle being bowed by a Jin fat overlord. No wonder Meitwei didn't announce the training task today. After all, his body is still too young. Although his strength is strong enough, he still suffers a bit in terms of blood gas content. It seems that his current limit is only hurting the door. Remember, when practicing Bam and Dunjia, don't get lost in that powerful power. Meitwei threw Li Jexuan into the warm medicinal bath, and shook his head gently. Youth can burn, but it can't be in this kind of place. If it wasn't for you, a fool, would I be willing to work so hard? Li Jexuan rolled his eyes, closed his mouth and ignored Meitwei's youth creed. He is not a fool like Rock Lee. How could he shout such a declaration of youth in the second year of middle school? Slowly closing his eyes, Li Jexuan grinned slightly. Although I don't want to be a youthful idiot, I don't allow you to burn yourself like this. Wait a little longer, give me a little more time, and I can save you. Silent Woods. Chen Si Wei. Li Jexuan switched hands, and the 3 seals were completed within a second. Soil wall. The palms filled with chakra touched the ground, and a huge earth wall nearly 10 meters thick suddenly drilled out of the ground, dividing a small piece of the entire forest. Jia Xuanjin, your Tuliubi is already perfect. Even after seeing such a perfect B-level ninjutsu, Yamada Jiji couldn't see any surprised expression on his face. It wasn't that there was something wrong with Li Jexuan's Tuliubi, but that Yamada Jiji was completely numb. In less than a month, Li Jexuan has mastered more than 10 kinds of C-level ninjutsu. As for the B-level ninjutsu Tuliubi, it only took Li Jexuan 5 days. However, Li Jexuan was still not very satisfied with such a Tuliubi. The soil flow wall is a very powerful defensive ninjutsu. Among Naruto, the one who uses the soil flow wall most frequently is none other than Kakashi. The printing time of less than half a second gave Kakashi almost the nickname Tsuchikage. Sensei Yamada, next. But the next improvement requires years of hard work. Li Jexuan indicated that Yamada Jiji could start teaching the next ninjutsu. However, the old man Yamada blushed and shook his head in embarrassment. It's gone. In just 1 month, the elite Chunin Yamada found out. I have nothing to teach Li Jexuan. It has to be said that this was a major blow to Yamada Suji, who was over years old. Li Jexuan also felt regretful, and comfortingly patted Yamada Fujitsu on the shoulder and said, Yamada, don't be sad, at least you have been my teacher once, and this life is enough. Once. Yamada's eyes widened in doubt, and he was a little surprised by the past tense words. I should be your teacher, right? Oh. Li Jexuan raised his eyebrows and asked back, as a teacher, why teach me? Yamada Jiji was stunned. He never expected that Li Jexuan would be so ruthless. Looking at Li Jexuan's eyes looking at him at the moment, it looks like looking at a napkin that has just wiped his nose. As an elite Chunin, I have mastered 1 A-level ninjutsu and 3 B-level ninjutsu. Yamada Jirui curled his lips pretending to be arrogant. What you have learned these days is just superficial. Hearing this, Li Jexuan naturally hit the snake with the stick. Since this is the case, then, Mr. Yamada, did you teach me the other 2 B-level ninjutsu? Well, of course. Yamada then nodded lightly, but soon shook his head again and said with a wry smile, Jia Xuanjin, you have been making trouble for a long time, so you are waiting for me here. Although I really want to teach you, these are family secrets. Speaking of this, Yamada Jiji blinked slyly as if remembering something, but what? Li Jexuan's eyes widened. If he could learn Yamada's second family secret technique, his combat power would undoubtedly rise to a higher level. If you are willing to marry the heirs of our family, that is negotiable. Yamada next stared at Li Jexuan closely. In his opinion, as long as a genius like Li Jexuan survives, he will definitely become the leader of Konoha in the future. This investment will not lose money. If Li Jexuan becomes Hokage by that time, the Yamada clan may also become a rich and famous family. Thinking of this, Yamada's next saliva almost flowed down. But when he came back to his senses, he realized that Li Jexuan had already left. Marriage. How could Li Jexuan agree? Not to mention Li Jexuan's promise to Tsunade. Even if Li Jexuan really wanted to marry now, it would not be the turn of the little Yamada family at all. Character. Li Jexuan. Chakra level. Ninja basic growth. Ninja tool. Time and space kunai. Items. 23 bottles of energy potion. Master ninjutsu. Shaoleki A-. 8 Dunjia injury doors A. Earth flow wall B. Wind breakthrough C. Great fireball C. In addition to chakra, Li Jexuan is completely a template for elite chunin. Compared with Yamada, there is even one more A-level ninjutsu. 2-year-old chunin. If this news is released, Li Jexuan will become the most dazzling existence in the entire Konoha, and countless forces will try their best to pull him into their family's chariot. However, Li Jexuan is not going to do this. Still the same sentence, big trees attract wind. In this era of war and strife, it is too normal to assassinate outstanding talented ninjas in the local area. But the tree wants to be quiet, but the wind doesn't stop. As soon as they separated from Yamada, someone came to the door. Hi Shang Yi Su. Li Jexuan raised his eyebrows, looking a little puzzled. The one who stood in front of him was none other than Hinata Masuzu, an old acquaintance who gave him 2 primary treasure boxes. Ever since harvesting Hinata Masuzu's heartfelt fear, Hinata Masuzu never dared to meet him face to face. What is the purpose of stopping him today? Li Jexuan, run away quickly. To Li Jexuan's surprise, Hinata Masuzu's first words when he saw him was to let him run away. Why? Li Jexuan was stunned for a moment, and said in surprise, could it be that old thief from Shinshobajian killed him? After all, Li Jexuan still feels a little guilty for dating someone else's granddaughter who is less than 2 years old. Although he looks only 2 years old, even a little younger than Tsunade, his soul is already an adult. The love between him and Tsunade is a real young girl's upbringing. Sin. No, it's my brother. Your brother. Li Jexuan was at a loss, and he had never heard that Kato was related to the Hinata family. Could it be that fool Jiraiya? My brother's name is Masaki Hinata, and he's going to kill you. Hinata Masuzu pushed Li Jexuan with a terrified expression. Hurry up and run, he is already a ninja, he has rolled his eyes, and he is infinitely stronger than me. Hearing this, Li Jexuan was completely relieved. He is neither Tsunade's parent nor the boyfriend of Tsunade's original destiny, so what is there to be afraid of? Hinata Masarina, Shinobu. Li Jexuan shook his head with a smile, he was too low-key. Not to mention the current him, even the one who fought Orochimaru more than a month ago can defeat ordinary ninja. It's too exaggerated. Li Jexuan smiled and waved his hands. I have no grievances with your brother, why did he kill me? It is true. Hinata Masuzu swallowed and said the whole thing. 5 minutes later, because you can't defeat me, so your father will send you to the land of fire. Li Jexuan looked at Hinata Masuzu with a look of astonishment, he never expected such a development. This day-to-day father, is there no problem with his head? My skills are inferior to others, I don't actually hate you. Hinata Masuzu sighed in a depressed mood, but my brother has protected me since he was a child, and he doesn't want me to suffer any grievances. But, why today? Li Jexuan scratched his head strangely, if that day Shang Yijun had assassinated him desperately a month ago. Caught off guard, he might be a bit dangerous. But now, Li Jexuan just took it as a joke. Because, in a few days, brother will be heading to the battlefield. Hinata Masuzu swallowed. He wants to kill you in the few days he's away. Obviously, Hinata Mashi really wanted to kill Lee Jexuan and go to the battlefield this day. Survived, as a hero in the war, coupled with the energy of the Hyuga family, it may not be impossible to save his life. If unfortunately he died on the battlefield, then Lee Jexuan would not kill for nothing. No matter how he calculates, he has earned. It's really underestimated by others. Lee Jexuan shook his head helplessly. No matter which choice he chose, Hinata Masato obviously believed that he was sure of Lee Jexuan. You better run. Hinata Masuzu swallowed. I've been out for long enough. If I don't go back, my brother should be suspicious. Saying goodbye to the terrified Hinata Masashizu, Lee Jexuan couldn't help frowning. He wasn't worried about Masaki Hinata, but that this ninja war seemed to be getting more and more fierce. Even teens are starting to take to the field. All the way home, Lee Jexuan was thinking about it. If Matwei was sent to the battlefield, what would he do to save his life? Unlike Mat Dai, Matwei doesn't even appear in Hokage's story. Lee Jexuan didn't even know how he died or who killed him. What a headache. The moment Lee Jexuan was scratching his head, the paper sliding door of the shop next to the street burst open. Soft fist, 8 diagrams 64 palms. Soft fist, 8 diagrams 64 palms. At the moment when Lee Jexuan was distracted, a pair of iron palms smashed the paper and opened the door, and slapped Lee Jexuan directly on the head. Lee Jexuan turned around and easily let go of this palm, but before Lee Jexuan could make any movement, the continuous iron palms of Bagua's 64 palms rushed towards him like a tide. It was too late to fight back. Lee Jexuan could only dodge for a moment. But the more he dodges, the faster the continuous Baguazong will be, and the less time Lee Jexuan has to move and move. Interesting. Looking at the young man with bright white teeth and waving his palms in front of him, Lee Jexuan couldn't help grinning. Hinata Masaki was indeed much stronger than Hinata Masashi. Both the speed and the coherence of Baguazong far surpassed Masuzu Hyuga. Even, once you fall into a passive state, even with the basic speed of Lee Jexuan Chunin level, there is no way to escape the blockade of Baguazong. As expected of the Hyuga clan, one of the rare giants in Konoha. In that case, I'll play with you. Chakra circulated quietly in Lee Jexuan's mind, and Lee Jexuan shouted softly, "Open the door, open." A wave of heat was circulating at the top of Lee Jexuan's head, and 100% brain development made Lee Jexuan's basic speed increase by several percent out of thin air. How is it? Are you still keeping up? Lee Jexuan changed his footsteps, trying to break free from the blockade of Hinata Yijun's Baguazong. Don't think about it. While Hinata Masaki shouted angrily, the speed of his hands increased by a few points, and he locked Lee Jexuan, who was about to break free from the blockade. 32 palms of the 8 diagrams. 33 palms of the 8 diagrams. Vaguely, Lee Jexuan was pushed back again. However, Lee Jexuan was not angry either, because he discovered that this Baguazong can just be used to test his Baman Dunjia. Open the door of Shu, open the door of life. Lee Jexuan opened 2 doors in succession, and the pale green chakra steam surged around his body. Surging power surged out of his body involuntarily. This time, Lee Jexuan hardly gave Hinata Masaki any chance to react. With only a slight sway of footsteps, he broke free from the continuous blockade of Baguazong. After all, Masama Hyuga is just a ninja, although the inheritance of the Hyuga clan is powerful, but the Baman Dunjia is not inferior to the soft fist of the Hyuga family. Cultivation suppressed, ninjutsu suppressed, Hinata Masaki was not wrong to lose. After forcibly terminating Baguazong, Hyuga Masaki sat down on the ground in a slump. I didn't expect that I couldn't beat you even like this. Hinata Masama took a breath, and his eyes became hollow. What are you talking about all this for? Am I not suitable to be a ninja? 15-year-old Masato Hinata, confused. Because you found the wrong opponent. Lee Jexuan pouted disdainfully. You should know that since there are ninjas in this world, there must be such a top ninja. You mean the first generation of adults? Hinata Masaki didn't understand Lee Jexuan's meaning. I mean, you don't have to compare with me. Lee Jexuan shook his head helplessly. In fact, he was not interested in competing with these brats. I'm in my 20s, what sense of accomplishment can I get from bullying these brats? But, you are only 2 years old. Talking about age again, Lee Jexuan couldn't help scratching his head. No matter which world it is, there seems to be a weird age theory. It's not that this old man is old enough, he must be kind and kind. It's not that this child is young enough to kill with a knife. Can you beat a 2-year-old sage of the 6 paths? Lee Jexuan curled his lips in disdain. Even if you call your father, you can't win. Speaking of this, Lee Jexuan was about to leave. He is not interested in being a spiritual mentor, and Lee Jexuan doesn't care about the deep brotherhood between the two brothers. Lee Jexuan has no habit of sympathizing with opponents. As long as this guy doesn't bother him anymore, everything will be fine. Killing an heir of the Hyuga family is too troublesome. But at this moment, Hinata Masaki seemed to be inspired by Lee Jexuan, and shouted loudly, I see, as long as you have a fight with our father, he will understand. Hinata Masama is not a fool after all, and Lee Jexuan's strength is obviously beyond the normal situation too much. In this case, as long as Dad can experience Lee Jexuan's strength in person, he should be able to understand. I have to say that teenagers are still very simple-minded. Not to mention, would Hinata Masashi's father be stupid enough to fight a duel with a 2-year-old child? Why did Lee Jexuan help him with this favor? But at this moment. Trigger task. Brotherhood. Task content. For the sake of my younger brother, the road of cheating will never end. At this moment, the bear boy Masaki Hinata sends you a sincere request, please beat my dad up. Mission rewards. Varies according to the combat situation. Mission time. 3 days. Lee Jexuan curled his lips in disdain, so what if there is a mission? Lord, don't do it. With that said, Lee Jexuan turned around and went home. Only a fool would go to Hyuga's house to fight with the members of Hyuga's family. It is easy to use too much force to pretend to be forceful and slap your face, and you will be doomed. Lee Jexuan, seeing that small figure slowly disappearing into the corner of the street, Hinata Masato couldn't help but sighed. It seems that everything is over. However, when Hyuga Masaki turned around and was about to leave, a familiar voice suddenly sounded from behind. Come on, let's discuss how to beat your father. Xiao Jexuan, in 3 days, I will go to the battlefield. Maitwei packed his luggage and said with emotion, Xiao Dai will trouble you to take care of it. Come on, let's have a good talk. Lee Jexuan grabbed Hinata Masaki who was about to leave. His face was full of egg pain. He would never have imagined that this guy Maitwei would go to the battlefield with Masaki Hinata. You agree. Hinata Masaki grabbed Lee Jexuan in surprise, and said happily, you really agree to beat my father? Hitting your dad, you are so happy, is it really okay? Now, let's make a detailed plan to beat your father. Speaking of this, Lee Jexuan couldn't help but paused, and looked at Hinata Masaki with weird eyes, are you really okay? No. Hinata Masaki looked excited. As long as you beat my dad, he will understand that it's not Yuzu's fault. Full brother control. You won't be called Uchiha Itachi in your next life. Lee Jexuan grinned in pain. First of all, you have to tell me your father's strength and commonly used ninjutsu. My dad is a special zongnin. There are family secrets in ninjutsu. Soft fist bagwazong, huishin, bayan, bagwakongzong. For the sake of his younger brother, Hinata Masaki sold his father out without hesitation. Is it particularly moderate? Lee Jexuan pinched his chin and nodded thoughtfully. If he hadn't reached Jonin, he might still have a chance of winning. The sun was shining, the birds were whispering, and it was a beautiful day. However, Hiroshi Hinata is not in a good mood right now. His eldest son, who was about to go to the battlefield, knelt in front of him with scars all over his body. Father, this is Lee Jexuan's letter to you. Hyuga Masaki carefully handed over the letter of challenge in his arms. From Bajun, the old thief. Just watching the beginning, Hinata Hiroshi's blood pressure went up. I beat my brother, and my brother came. After I beat my brother, my father can't sit still. I, Lee Jexuan, am not a person who likes ink marks. I will wait for you in the park at 5 o'clock this afternoon. Then you father and son can ask me for advice. Grandpa Hyuga stays. Grandpa Hyuga. Hinata Hiroma squeezed the letter paper tightly. This paper cannot be passed on no matter what. Otherwise, his Hyuga clan would become a laughing stock. Father, will you fight Lee Jexuan? Seeing this, Hinata Masama cautiously probed. Nonsense. How can I fight a 2-year-old child? Hyuga Masaki walks away angrily. No matter what, he is also the mainstay of Hyuga's wealthy family, how could he duel with a child? Seeing this, Masaki Hinata lowered her head in disappointment. 10 minutes later, Lee Jexuan sighed helplessly, and lightly patted Hinata Makino on the shoulder. In this case, we can only implement Plan B. But is this really good? There was a rare hesitant look on Hinata Masama's face. This guy never hesitated when he planned to beat his father. But Lee Jexuan was already on the verge of an arrow at this time, and had no choice but to send it. For the benefit of the feat, we must make sacrifices. Lee Jexuan clenched his fists tightly, his eyes shone with determination. For the benefit of the feat. Hinata Masuma's eyes widened suddenly, and he muttered to himself, "That's right, it's all for Yizu, I understand." Lee Jexuan smiled gratifiedly, waved his hand and said, "Now that you understand, let's do it quickly." Hinata Masaki nodded affirmatively, and resolutely rushed out of the park. Seeing Hinata Masaki's back running under the setting sun, Lee Jexuan couldn't help but grin. Brother Kong is really deceiving. No wonder the old guy from the third generation limped Itachi with just one mouth. 4 words floated from the sky. For my brother. Crazy crazy. In just half an hour, an eye-catching challenge letter was posted all over the streets and alleys of Muya village. A 2-year-old child actually wrote a letter of challenge to Hyuga Hiroma of the Hyuga family. And, this little guy named Lee Jexuan claimed to be Hyuga's grandfather. Isn't this scolding the entire Hyuga clan? 1,000 words merge into one sentence. Today's young people are really awesome. There's no reason for this, there's no reason for this. Hinata Hiroma squeezed the familiar challenge letter in his hand. He was so angry that he couldn't speak. It's so deceiving. You beat my youngest son, I will not go to you, let you children solve it by themselves. You beat my eldest son who is about to go to the battlefield, and I can tolerate it. After all, you are only 2 years old. I can even pretend I didn't see the letter of challenge you sent so desperately. After all, we are people with status. However, you actually posted this lifeless letter all over the streets and alleys of Konoha. What a beast. Hinata Hiroshi gritted his teeth angrily. No matter what he does now, the Hinata family has become the laughing stock of the whole Konoha. At this moment, the door of Hiroma Hyuga's house was suddenly pushed open, and an old Hyuga clansman walked in. Uncle 3. Hiroshi Hinata was stunned for a moment. The Zong family is looking for you, let's go. The third uncle didn't give Hinata Hiroshi a good look at all. He opened the paper and pushed the door and went straight out. Zong family. Hinata Hiroma's entire face turned dark. When something like this happened, what can you say? Sitting in the center of the room, Hinata Ashizashi was expressionless, with a mountain of letters in his hand. The letters, the family has already put them away. But the impact of this matter has not been eliminated. I'll take care of that little guy. Hiroma Hyuga gritted his teeth, and the imprint of the caged bird curse slowly emerged on his forehead. I swear in the name of Hiroma Hyuga that I will never let the Hinata family be ashamed. Can killing a 2-year-old child save the face of the Hyuga clan? Hinata Azusa shook his head disdainfully. Hiroma, you still don't understand what's wrong with you. Forget it, you go. Hinata Ashizai waved his hand, and after Hinata Hiroma left, he shook his head coldly. The people who separate the family are still so stupid, they can't even control their own son. With the energy of the Hinata family, Lee Jexuan and Hinata Masashi's little tricks would not be able to hide for long. It was not Lee Jexuan who shamed the Hyuga clan, but you, Hyuga Hiroma. As soon as he returned to the branch house, Hinata Hiroma took off his normal clothes, put on the Chunin forehead guard coldly, and said through gritted teeth, Lee Jexuan, I want you to regret everything you did. Seeing this, Hinata Masuma secretly clenched his fists. Dad finally took the bait. As long as Lee Jexuan defeats him, he will keep his younger brother. Poor Hinata Masama, he still doesn't understand the seriousness of this matter. This battle is no longer just a private matter of their family, it's the grudge between the Hyuga clan and Lee Jexuan. Come on, let me step on you. The sun was setting, and the blood-like sunlight sprinkled among the trees. Lee Jexuan gently wiped the time and space kunai in his hand, grinning sneer. Sha-chan hibernates, does not sing for 3 years, and becomes a blockbuster. Since you want to stand tall, you need to find a stepping stone that is big enough. Hyuga clan, barely enough. Under the setting sun, Hinata Hiroma's figure emerged from the end of the woods. Chapter 31. The breeze is blowing, the fallen leaves are colorful. The noisy grove is no longer the tranquility of the past. Because of this funny challenge, everyone in Konoha who had nothing to do ran over here. I don't know, what is the Hinata family going to do? They won't kill this kid, will they? Regardless of the noisy voices of the crowd, Lee Jexuan and Hinata Hiroma stood coldly opposite each other. You are Lee Jexuan. Although Hiroshi Hinata was already prepared in his heart, when he saw the little Lee Jexuan, he couldn't help but frown. It is too small. Is this guy really 2 years old? No, I am not. Lee Jexuan denied it. Hinata Hiroshi couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. It was still too much for him to do it with such a young child, but before Hinata Hiroma can relax completely. Lee Jexuan sneered contemptuously. I am Grandpa Hyuga. Shuzi is so brave. Hinata Hiroshi didn't hold back at all. The first thing he did was the Hinata family's Kanjirokwan, 8 diagrams 128 palms. At that moment, Lee Jexuan seemed to see a huge white bear rushing towards him, and the continuous bagwazong was like a terrifying bear's paw, which took people's courage. As expected of the special chunin of the Hyuga family, the speed and power are far beyond Lee Jexuan's imagination. Confront with basic speed, and you will definitely lose. Lee Jexuan made a prompt decision. While the chakra was running, the 8-door dungeon opened 3 doors in a row. Open, rest, life, all 3 doors open. Bear. The pale green chakra flame surged, forcibly pulling Lee Jexuan and Hinata Hiromado to the same level. So fast. Hiroshi Hinata couldn't help being startled. Lee Jexuan's sudden soaring speed frightened him. The speed is the same, so what about the power? Lee Jexuan grinned, and easily dodged Hinata Hiroma's first palm. Before Hinata Hiroma could hit his second palm, he turned his footsteps slightly, lowered his body abruptly, and while avoiding the second palm, he raised his foot and kicked Hinata Hiroma's jaw hard. Beauty Lotus. This is the classic move of Baman Dunjia. Just getting hit in the jaw by this kick will cause any foe to lose consciousness briefly with a concussion. Then hug the opponent and threw it fiercely towards the ground, completely destroying the enemy. However, Hinata Hiroma is Konoha's special chunin after all. Although he was careless for a while, he quickly realized that he pushed out both Bagua palms at the same time, trying to block Lee Jexuan's kick. Oh, the palms and feet intersected, and a strong wave of air broke out. But what is surprising is that the person who flew out turned out to be Hinata Hiroshi. The irrepressible force kicked Hinata Hiroma high, and Lee Jexuan actually won this duel of power. In the grove, the originally noisy voice seemed to have died. Except for rough, heavy breathing, I can hardly hear anything. After a long while, the noisy voice sounded again. This guy is only 2 years old. What a genius, his strength is even greater than that of a special chunin. Not only his strength, but also his speed is not inferior to Hinata Hiroma. Originally in the mood of watching a joke, they did not expect that they witnessed the birth of a genius. Listening to the surrounding voices, Lee Jexuan nodded slightly in satisfaction. That's right, that's it. Since you want to make a sound, you must be that top existence. Only in this way can the title of genius have its value. Hinata Hiroma landed slowly. His face was extremely ugly. Because Lee Jexuan was too young, he was too careless. Boy, I won't give you another chance. Hyuga Hiroma sneered and curled his lips. I'll let you see the true glory of the Hinata clan. White eyes, open. White eyes, open. During the chakra circulation, the veins around Hyuga Hiroma's eyes popped up, looking extremely ferocious. It is said that Bayan can not only see through, but also has a terrifying 360-degree infinite viewing angle. That's right, only when the white eyes are fully opened is the real fighting state of the Hyuga clan. The battle has just begun now. Space-time suffering. Lee Jexuan's wrist shook slightly, and the sharp space-time kunai was about to make a move. It's useless, I have seen through the kunai hidden in your hands a long time ago. Hinata Hiroma curled her lips in disdain. In front of Bai Yan, any tricks are meaningless. You said yes. Lee Jexuan threw kunai unbelievingly, but Hinata Hiromashi easily blocked him. If you can only use these methods, then everything is over. There was no emotion in Hinata Hiroma's pure white eyes. Gossip, 128 palms. It's also Bagwazong, but with the eyes open, Hinata Hiroshi's speed and strength have obviously improved to a higher level. Even vaguely suppressed Li Jexuan, no matter how Li Jexuan dodged, the continuous Bagwazong would stick to him like chewing gum. Just by opening your eyes, the situation is instantly reversed. The elite Chunin of the Hyuga family is really tricky. The speed of Bagwazong is getting faster and faster, and it is already difficult to cope with the state of opening 3 doors with Bamindunjia. The slightly sharp palm has already left Li Jexuan with more or less wounds. But Li Jexuan didn't want to open the 4th injury door. Once the injury door is opened, even if Hinata Hiroma wins, Li Jexuan doesn't want to look like he's in a coma. Not hesitating to offend the Hyuga clan, and painstakingly created this battle, Li Jexuan not only wants to win, but also wins beautifully. Substitute. Li Jexuan's chakra reserves are only at the ninja level, so he has never used ninjutsu. But when Li Jexuan started to use ninjutsu, the battle was destined to end in a very short time. Oh! Hinata Hiroma smashed the wood of the substitute technique into pieces with his palms covered with chakra, and laughed loudly. It seems that you are at the end of your rope. Bagua palm. Hinata Hiroma laughed wildly and rushed towards Li Jexuan. Let me see how much chakra you have. Although the substitute technique is basic, it is still a very high-end space-time ninjutsu in essence. The chakra that needs to be consumed once to cast is also very exaggerated, and the chakra of Li Jexuan's ninja level can only be released 8 times. This is the result of Li Jexuan's hard work these days. If it was before, he might be empty blue after 3 times. Hinata Bajun rushed over aggressively. Li Jexuan did not hesitate, and made seals with both palms. Siwei Shanhai Wu Yin. Art Fire Escape Ho Fireball. While chakra was circulating, Li Jexuan puffed up his mouth and spat out a huge ball of fire. What? He can use a fireball. He can use sea-level ninjutsu at only 2 years old. Hinata Hiroma couldn't help but widen his eyes. Li Jexuan has given him too many surprises since the battle so far. What kind of genius is this 2-year-old child? The orange flames of Hao's fireball technique rushed towards Bo Jen fiercely. According to this speed, he would definitely not be able to dodge the flames. The outcome seems to have been determined. However, gossip, back to heaven. Light blue chakra flames spewed out from all parts of Hiroma Hinata's body, and Hiroma Hinata began to rotate that day. These chakra flames formed a perfect semicircle, firmly protecting Hiroma Hinata. The flames raged, but Hinata Hiroshi, who was in the Bagua Huishin formation, was unscathed. Although Hao Haocho's flame is fierce, it is still a common fire, and it can only be extinguished slowly. After the fire went out, Hinata Hiroshio's gossip back to the sky also stopped. Who? Li Jexuan gasped fiercely. Even the state of Bamindunjia subsided. The whole person looks weak as if he just got out of the water. Seeing this, Hiroma Hinata nodded secretly. That's right, even if Li Jexuan is very talented, he can use a powerful ninjutsu like fireball at the age of 2. But after all, he is a 2-year-old child and cannot fight for a long time. Now, it's time to end this battle. Soft boxing, Bagua empty palm. Hiroma Hinata grinned grinningly, gathered all the chakras in his body, and pushed out 64 palms fiercely. 8 diagrams empty palm is a variant mystery of the Hyuga family's 8 diagrams 64 palms. Through the exquisite control of chakra, a full 64 palms of chakra shock waves are issued from the palm, which is amazingly powerful. The invisible shock wave rammed straight towards the little Li Jexuan. Hiroshi Hyuga was really confident that as long as this shock wave hit Li Jexuan, he would surely die. When this shock wave rushed to Li Jexuan's face, Hinata Hiroshi could already imagine Li Jexuan's death. That little body will be blown into a ball of fleshy foam, sprinkled all over the forest. Chen Si Wei. A sudden voice sounded, and Li Jexuan grinned strangely. Tuliubi. Rumble. Earth and rocks splashed, and a solid earth wall stood in front of Li Jexuan abruptly. No matter how much Hinata Hiroshi's 8 diagram empty palm collides, he will not move. This turned out to be a B-level ninjutsu. And it was released in just 1 second. The people in the grove were stunned, they couldn't think of it. Li Jexuan, who is only 2 years old, can unleash B-level ninjutsu that belongs to the elite Chunin and even Jonin. Hyuga Hiroma was also taken aback by the sudden earth flow wall. Li Jexuan's talent is far beyond the general sense of genius. Being able to release B-level ninjutsu at only 2 years old is simply monstrous. Such an existence, as long as he is given a little time, he will definitely become the leader of Konoha. But Hinata Hiroshi quickly adjusted his mentality. No matter how talented Lee Jexuan is, he is already ready to let go. So what about the earth flow wall? Break it for me. Hiroshi Hinata wants to use 64 gossip empty palms to smash Lee Jexuan's earth flow wall. 61 palms, 62 palms. In just 10 seconds, Hinata Hiroma hit a total of 62 palms. At last, the soil flow wall, which is also a B-level ninjutsu, was overwhelmed and collapsed. The last wall standing in front of Lee Jexuan and Hyuga Hiroma has also disappeared. The earth wall collapsed, and pale yellow dust floated in the air. Boy, you can't escape. Even Hiroma Hyuga, who is an elite chunin, couldn't help panting slightly after hitting 62 empty palms. Although the smoke and dust obscured his sight, Hiroshi Hinata could clearly hear Lee Jexuan's heavy breathing. Sure enough, this kid is exhausted. Hiroshi Hyuga couldn't help laughing. He won this battle after all. Zizizi. What is this sound? Hyuga Hiroma raised his head in doubt. Just at this moment, the smoke and dust falling from the tuliubi happened to dissipate. Zizizi. Light blue arcs danced. The little boy grinned, his 8 white teeth gleaming. Don't look for it, your grandpa Hinata is here. Everyone present could never forget this scene. The child less than 2 years old lowered his hands, and the violent blue electric current was slowly beating in his palm. The violent power contained in it made everyone's eyes sting. Rachel. Following the thunder, Lee Jexuan's whole body turned into a flash of lightning, passing straight past Hinata Hiroma's ear. Zizizizi. With a tooth-sickening roar, Lee Jexuan penetrated hundreds of meters and dozens of trees before stopping slowly. When everyone came back to their senses, there were still some beating light blue arcs in the air. Dazed, everyone stared blankly. They have never seen such ninjutsu. Such overbearing speed, lethality, and penetration. This is definitely not the power that B-level ninjutsu can achieve. What ninjutsu is this? Hinata Hiroma's eyes widened in horror and bewilderment. At the moment when the lightning flashed, he seemed to see the Grim Reaper passing by his ears. There are even tiny electric arcs still dancing on his face. Rachel. Lee Jexuan turned his head with a smile. Because I will use it to cut through lightning one day. Hearing such domineering words, Hyuga Hiroma collapsed to his knees. I lost. It's nothing, your 2 sons lost too. Lee Jexuan smiled and nodded slightly to Hinata Masaki in the crowd. Although he took advantage of Hinata Masaki, he did not suggest helping the brothers at this time. What's wrong with the younger brother? But why didn't you kill me? Lee Jexuan was about to leave when Hinata Hiroshi suddenly raised his head and stared at Lee Jexuan closely. You know, I always wanted to kill you. Hearing this, Lee Jexuan was stunned for a while, then suddenly shook his head a little lonely. Because I am Konoha's ninja, my Reikiri will not cut my compatriots. It will only be used to cut up the offal that threatens Konoha on the battlefield. Lee Jexuan stretched out his hands and said proudly, as a Konoha ninja, in 3 days, I will go to the front line and use it to kill all Konoha's enemies. Impressed. It doesn't matter if he can't beat a 2-year-old child, and even his consciousness is not as lofty as Lee Jexuan. Everyone's eyes on Hinata Hiroma are no different from looking at garbage. Even the name of the Hyuga clan has become a bit humble. As for Lee Jexuan, the talent of the sky, the future of Konoha, the saint came to the world. The winner enjoys all the flowers. Could it be that Lee Jexuan is really so noble? Can we repay grievances with virtue for the sake of national justice? Wait a minute, Saruta from the nursery said, if I hadn't been stabbed in the neck, I would have believed it. Behind Lee Jexuan's indifferent smile, his teeth were almost gnashed. How dare you ask why? What a lifeless guy. If your surname is not Hinata, why don't I chop you up and feed it to the dogs? But, that's fine, let Hinata Hiroma live with humiliation. This may be more painful than killing him. The defeat in the frontline war made the entire Konoha lifeless. But the news that the 2-year-old genius Lee Jexuan defeated the Hinata family's elite chunin is tantamount to a shot in the arm. It was like dropping an atomic bomb on a calm lake, completely detonating the entire Konoha. Everywhere in Konoha is discussing this young genius who turned out to be born out of nowhere. He defeated Hyuga Hiroshin at the age of only 2, and some people even think that Lee Jexuan already has the strength of Jonin. Konoha's future. Such rumors have already begun to circulate in the market. Countless people want to see Lee Jexuan's true face, and want to see what the 2-year-old Jonin looks like. Is it 3-headed and 6-armed, with a blue face and fangs, or a halo of light floating above his head? Among them, there are those who join in the fun, those who want to gain benefits, and those who have malicious intentions. The spies lurking in Konoha from various countries have gone crazy these days. They almost searched the entire Konoha, hoping to get more information about Lee Jexuan. However, Lee Jexuan suddenly seemed to have evaporated from the world, and he didn't even see a piece of clothing. Fanatical fans even stepped on the threshold of Lee Jexuan teacher Yamada Gigi, but Yamada Gigi couldn't say anything except a wry smile. Because the relationship between him and Lee Jexuan is not as simple as it seems. I am not so much a teacher as a speculator, and I want to be a stepping stone to a good relationship. This little guy is hiding really deep. Yamada Gigi sent off today's number 30 group of guests with a wry smile. Although it had been a long time, his heart still couldn't calm down. I didn't expect this guy to create an A-level ninjutsu himself. What a monster. He even created his own ninjutsu, and Lee Jexuan even mastered a 8-door dunjia that leads directly to the Tao. However, where did this guy hide? After calming down, Yamada couldn't help thinking about this question. It's really curious. Deep in the mansion of the Thousand Hands clan. Tsunade, I've been bothering you for the past few days. Lee Jexuan sat in front of Tsunade solemnly, and nodded his thanks to Tsunade. Excuse me for a few days, and I will leave. Well, they are all classmates. My Thousand Hands clan can still help with this little help. Tsunade smiled dignifiedly and gracefully at Lee Jexuan, always keeping a respectful distance from Lee Jexuan, showing the demeanor of a wealthy family. My lady princess. Seeing this scene, the bald butler standing silently behind Tsunade was moved to tears. You have finally grown up, and you are becoming more and more like a princess. Tsunade smiled sweetly at the bald butler. Uncle Yamamoto, please go get some tea to entertain my classmates. Everyone is a lady. Princess Tsunade has finally become a lady of everyone. Kenjiro Yamamoto nodded movedly, and wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes. I see, I'll get it right away. Crash. The moment the paper door was closed, Tsunade flew up like a butterfly escaping from the snare, and plunged into Lee Jexuan's arms, quietly nestling on Lee Jexuan's chest. Jexuan, can you not go to the battlefield? I don't want you to. You know, I'll be back. Lee Jexuan gently stroked Tsunade's pale golden hair, and comforted him. But, are you willing to wait for me to come back? Certainly. Tsunade nodded firmly. A blushing suddenly appeared on his face. It's just that I want to lie in your arms like this forever. What a lovely girl. Lee Jexuan is not a piece of wood. How could she not feel Tsunade's affection for him? Believe me. Lee Jexuan gently kissed Tsunade's forehead. There will be such a day, we will be together forever. If that guy in the Thousand Hands gate doesn't kill me. A pair of cute little lovers cling to each other, greedily feeling each other's existence. Old slave, this life is worth it. Tsunade-sama finally became enlightened and became a dignified, elegant, and generous lady. Walking out of the room, Kenjiro Yamamoto felt like he was flying in the clouds. Uncle Yamamoto, has something good happened to you? Have you raised your salary? The young butler looked at Yamamoto with a strange expression. Today, Senior Yamamoto seems to be a little different from usual. Tsunade-sama has become a lady, which is much happier than a salary increase. Oh, Moyuki. Kenjiro Yamamoto greeted him kindly. Where are you going? My lord, let me invite Lee Jexuan to come over. The corner of the butler's mouth twitched unceasingly. Uncle Yamamoto, who is called the Devil's Butler, has never smiled. What's going on? Is that so? Then let me notify you. Kenjiro Yamamoto couldn't wait to see the generous Princess Tsunade again. By the way, Moyuki. Please, go get some pastries, please. Kenjiro Yamamoto's old face almost turned into a chrysanthemum with a smile. Moyuki was speechless. Please. Today's Uncle Yamamoto is indeed no ordinary senior. Oh, I don't know what Tsunade-sama will discuss with the guests. The tea ceremony, or flower arrangement, or the battle situation at the front. Kenjiro Yamamoto walked back to the room with a smile, and opened the paper door full of anticipation. Quote dot 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 quote. The scene at that time was very embarrassing, and the dignified, elegant and generous Tsunade princess character completely collapsed. Lying in Lee Jexuan's arms with a jade body, her little face was blushing with happiness. If it wasn't for the fact that the two of them were still young, Kenjiro Yamamoto even thought that this was the aftermath of the incident. The four eyes met, Lee Jexuan and Yamamoto Kenjiro's eyes met involuntarily in the air. Why did you come back so quickly? Lee Jexuan slowly grinned, and smiled stiffly. Well, I said that Tsunade-sama fell down, do you believe it? Ninja fell flat, you say I believe it or not. In just 1 second, Yamamoto Kenjiro's ruddy face turned into the color of pot ashes. Guest, Hashirama-sama, please go over. Kenjiro Yamamoto stared at Lee Jexuan expressionlessly, his terrifying eyes seemed to say, boy, if Master Hashirama didn't look for you, I would have killed you alive. At this moment, Mazi excitedly ran over with the pastries. Senior Yamamoto, here are the pastries. What's the point of yelling, can't you see that the guests are about to leave? Yamamoto grinned ferociously, and slowly rubbed his devil-like sharp teeth. Moyuki, when will you become smarter? Whoa, I was wrong. Maoji wanted to cry but had no tears, it was all a hallucination before. Uncle Yamamoto is even scarier than usual today. 10 minutes later. Lee Jexuan has never felt such a happy thing to see Senju Zujian. Hashima-sama. Lee Jexuan was about to cry. Along the way, Kenjiro Yamamoto put too much pressure on him. It's too sinful to raise a 2-year-old girl. Ha, still call me an adult. Shinsho Zujian shook his head solemnly. Is it time to change the name? Change your name. Lee Jexuan suddenly had 2 heads, hesitating for a long time before probing. Grandpa. Puff. The first generation laughed and rolled all over the floor. You were really wonderful, no wonder you abducted Xiao Tsunade when you were only 2 years old. Now, no matter how slowly Jexuan reacted, he knew that the first generation was making fun of him. This guy is still so out of tune. But, who told him that he was a man known as the god of ninjas? Don't look at the corruption of the war on the front line of the Konoha, but as long as Hashirama goes out for a while, and the other 4 major ninja villages don't kneel down to call dad, Lee Jexuan will write the name upside down. Seemingly seeing the doubt in Lee Jexuan's eyes, the first generation also suddenly fell silent. I know what you're thinking. In fact, I also want to end this senseless war. Shinsho Zujian shook his head lightly with gloomy eyes. It's not that I don't want to, but I can't. It's not that I don't want to, but I can't. Mudden is a powerful ninjutsu beyond the attributes of the 7 chakras. It not only has the ability to change ever-changing, but also endows Senjujuma with superhuman recovery ability, but Mudun is not perfect. Mudun can create real life, and what he pays must be his own life. Sensho Zuma smiled wryly and shook his head. Although I was lucky enough to win the battle against Tongma in the Valley of Ending, I spent too much vitality. Saying that, Sensho Zujian stretched out his hands, and gently cut open the white and delicate skin with his nails. There is no blood, no flesh, and the trunk like a dead tree is shocking. At this time, the 1,000 hands column is like a tall birch that has been eaten away by insects. Inside the tall and straight trunk is a rotten life. Why are you telling me this? Lee Jexuan's voice was a little cold, and it seemed to mean something for Sensho Zujian to tell him such a secret. Because you are Konoha's future. Sensho Zujian laughed out loud, teasing Lee Jexuan. A 2-year-old Jonin, a sage of the 6 paths is nothing more than that. I'm far from being that strong. In front of Senjujuma, Lee Jexuan didn't have any luck, and admitted frankly, I am now, in front of Jonin, I can only run for my life. Jonin has always been a high-end force in the Naruto world, and some powerful Junin even mastered several S-level ninjutsu. Lee Jexuan's little Lakey is really not enough to watch. What's more, Lee Jexuan's chakra at the ninja level made it impossible for him to fight for a long time. But, you will continue to become stronger, won't you? Shinshujujian stared at Lee Jexuan closely, with an inexplicable meaning in his eyes. In just 2 months, you have already possessed such power. If it wasn't for Anbu's repeated confirmation, even I wouldn't believe it. In 2 months, from an ignorant baby to a young genius who defeated Hinata Hiroshi. The span between this is so large and the time is so short, even Shinsho Zujian was really surprised. Lee Jexuan was not at all surprised that Shinshujujian could find out his life experience. when he decided to challenge Hyuga Hiruzen, he was mentally prepared. If you are given a period of time to practice, even I expect what kind of achievements you can achieve. Shinsho Zujian did not hide his appreciation for Lee Jexuan at all. Perhaps, after a few years, you will really become Konoha's future. You want to persuade me to stay. Lee Jexuan was very surprised. He didn't expect that Shinsho Zujian didn't want him to go to the battlefield. You should know that the stifling of geniuses in various countries is cruel. Shinsho Zujian sighed slightly. There are many geniuses who have died in Konoha these years. If you stay in Konoha, I may be able to guarantee your safety, but if you go to the battlefield, in such a flesh and blood blender, there are so many dead geniuses, and the fall of shadow-level powerhouses is nothing. Even if the flowers in the greenhouse are in full bloom, they are just playthings. After pondering for a while, Lee Jexuan still shook his head slightly. What's more, if you really investigate clearly, then you should understand that I have to go to the battlefield for a reason. I can't let that idiot go to the battlefield alone, I owe him this. After speaking, Lee Jexuan turned and left unceremoniously. The corruption of Senjujuma made him feel angry. In Lee Jexuan's heart, Senjujuma has always been the ninja god who laughed loudly. Could it be that even the god of ninjas can't resist the erosion of time? After Lee Jexuan walked away, Shinsho Zujian stared quietly into the distance, and after a long while, he suddenly burst into laughter. Now, I really start to believe it, Lee Jexuan. The future of Konoha. Shinsho Zujian smiled slightly, with an inscrutable smile on his face. Shao Tsunade, you have a good eye. Now, I can feel relieved. Even if the tall trees are old, the will of the ninja god will not decay. I just mocked the god of ninja. As soon as he walked out of the gate, Lee Jexuan fell into deep contemplation. That is a terrifying existence that plays Kyuubi like a ball and hits the entire ninja world. It's really inflated that I don't give him face so much. Achievement. Approval from Thousand Hands Pillars. Reward a mid-level treasure chest. The system's voice was abrupt and cold, without any emotion. Approval. Intermediate treasure chest. After a while, Lee Jexuan came back to his senses. This is like a classic plot where the mother-in-law uses the youngest daughter to test the eldest son-in-law. In order to confirm Lee Jexuan's responsibility, Kionjujujian performed such a play. The routine of the mother's family is too deep. However, fortunately, Lee Jexuan has passed this level unknowingly. This is the first time I saw an intermediate treasure chest. I didn't expect it to be done in such a way. The iron treasure box exuded a faint fluorescence, and Lee Jexuan rubbed his fingers excitedly. He hadn't seen a treasure box for more than a month, let alone such a high-end product. Open it for me. The box opened slowly, and a faint fluorescent light flashed. Intermediate ninja tool. Kusanagi sword. The cold sword light flickered. Lee Jexuan stretched out his hand to grab the Kusanagi sword, and shouted good luck in his heart. Among Naruto, the ones who use the Kusanagi sword the most are Orochimaru and Sasuke. Taking Sasuke as an example, the Kusanagi sword did not improve his combat power by any means. It goes without saying that it is hard and sharp, and its good conductivity makes Sasuke invincible with his thunder sword. Good stuff. Holding the sword, Lee Jexuan was full of emotion in his heart. Sure enough, the box is reliable. Unlike Hiroma Hinata's mission, although the rewards given are good, Lee Jexuan can't use it at all. Task. Beat my dad up and it's done. Task reward, basic white eyes. The white eyes are naturally good, but if Lee Jexuan dares to show an extra pair of white eyes inexplicably, the Hyuga clan dared to rush into the Senju clan, and slaughtered Lee Jexuan in front of Senjuzuma. The Hinata family's protection of the boundaries of their blood inheritance has almost reached a perverted level. The existence of a caged bird is a powerful proof of this. They even deal with their own brothers, let alone Lee Jexuan. Besides, Lee Jexuan really doesn't like rolling eyes. For no particular reason, it's just ugly. For a cataract patient, there is no sharp ace in this world. When he returned to the guest room prepared for him by the Thousand Hands, Midway had already started training. 1,000 weight-bearing push-ups, 1,000 weight-bearing squats. The training volume of Midway is still so inhuman. Ever since, Lee Jexuan joined in without saying a word. Today, I will definitely beat you. Lee Jexuan feels that he has made great progress recently, and may have a chance to beat Midway. 3 hours later, Even with a bottle of energy potion, Lee Jexuan collapsed from exhaustion. But this time Matwei finally reached the limit, took a long breath, and fell down too. One big and one small were lying on the floor exhausted. Xiao Jexuan, in fact, you don't need to accompany me. Matwei sighed for a long time. Although he is a little simple, it doesn't mean he is stupid. You are still young, you will have a great future. A ninja who looks forward and backward will have a future. Hearing this, Lee Jexuan curled his lips in disdain. Although ninja has a word for ninja, but the behavior is just the opposite. The real ninja is to go forward bravely and face difficulties. For his younger brother, Itachi beheaded all blood relatives in his family. For revenge, Sasuke resolutely defected to Konoha. In order to bond, Naruto chased his whole life, and finally brought Sasuke back to Konoha. This indomitable power is the real ninja. When dawn comes, the warm sunshine pierces the darkness, and mottled light and shadows fall among the woods outside Muya village. Didn't you say it's good to be here? Why haven't you come yet? The evil Shulinyan turned slightly, and Yuya Uchiha was like a peacock with its tail open, proudly showing off his Sharingan. Does that guy think that the little Chunin can bully the great Uchiha like this? When he comes, I must teach him a good lesson. Uchiha Yuya has an inexplicable hostility towards the captain who has never been masked. Why should you be the captain instead of me, who is a Uchiha genius? Hinata Masaki, who was standing beside him, didn't answer. What happened a few days ago had taught him what is humility. Seeing that Hinata Masaki ignored him, Uchiha Yuki curled his lips in disdain. Coward. Although both belong to the Konoha wealthy family, Uchiha still looks down on the Hyuga clan. This kind of contempt is the same as the people of Shanghai look down on the people of Peeping. It comes from the pride in the bones. In addition to the two of them, there was a man with glasses who was carrying a medical kit and stood quietly aside, not saying a word from beginning to end. Really boring, Uchiha Yuya pouted boredly. However, at this moment, there was finally movement in the woods. Matwei walked in straight in a purple tights. You are the captain. Uchiha Yuya took the lead in attacking, rushed up and grabbed Matwei's collar and roared, don't think that Chunin is so great, in the Uchiha clan. No, I'm not the captain. Matwei repeatedly waved his hands to deny it, but he has endured for thousands of years. Aren't you the captain? There was an oolong, and Uchiha Yu didn't apologize at all, but looked around suspiciously, and grabbed Matwei's collar angrily. You guys don't pretend to be garlic. Besides you, who else is here? I'm here. Lee Jexuan pouted helplessly. He was so small that he even had such a thin sense of existence. Are you the captain? Uchiha Yuya's eyes moved down slowly, until he saw Lee Jexuan. He covered his stomach and laughed loudly. Which family is this kid? Go home, kid, this is not where you should come. Jia Xuanjin, are you our captain? Hinata Masaki's eyes widened excitedly. No one knew Lee Jexuan's strength better than him. If Lee Jexuan led them, it would undoubtedly be much safer than ordinary teams. Hey, wait, you know him. Uchiha Yuya's eyes widened in surprise, but it's a pity that no one paid him any attention. Call me captain. Lee Jexuan shrugged expressionlessly. These guys are still too young, they urgently need to be taught. Captain, I'm Yamada Suhiro. However, the medical ninja gave him a little surprise. He seemed to be a guy who could communicate, but this move also completely angered Uchiha Yuya. When I speak, you all pretend to be dumb. As soon as this little kid talks, do you keep licking like this? Shouldn't you come and lick me? I am writing sharing eyes. Hey, have you guys made a mistake? You really want this brat to be the captain? Uchiha Yuya tore his throat and roared, but it's a pity that no one paid him any attention. I don't accept it, I want to challenge you. Since he awakened Sharingan, he has not endured such humiliation. Jealousy caused Uchiha Yuya to explode completely, took out kunai, and Uchiha Yuya pointed at Lee Jexuan very domineeringly. I don't think you are qualified to be the captain at all. Before Lee Jexuan can speak, I advise you to save some effort. Hinata Masato rolled his eyes. Live well, it's better than anything else. These are the words from the heart of Masato Hinata. But from Uchiha Yuya's ears, it's just adding fuel to the fire. I'm going to challenge you. Uchiha Yuya roared and rushed towards Lee Jexuan, but he couldn't run 2 steps away. Too done, the technique of beheading in the heart. Uchiha Yuya was suddenly pulled into the ground, leaving only a dazed head looking around on the ground, as if he didn't know what happened. Really, Hinata Masarina couldn't stop supporting his forehead. If someone underestimated Lee Jexuan because of his age, he would definitely suffer a big loss in the end. Why doesn't my Sharingan see anything? Uchiha Yu couldn't accept his fiasco, and yelled angrily. Gag his mouth. Without any hesitation, Matvei took off his socks and stuffed them into Uchiha Yuya's mouth. Why are the Uchiha clan so stupid? Lee Jexuan shook his head helplessly. That's right, if you're not stupid, you won't play yourself as an extermination. The desert is lonely, the wind and sand are raging. Is this the reinforcements sent by the village? It's just nonsense. Lee Jexuan and his party walked quietly in Konoha's barracks, and Uchiha Yuya lowered his head in shame, cursing in a low voice, but he didn't dare to do other extraordinary things. 10 days ago, Matvei's socks really caused him a lot of psychological shadow. Matvei has worn those socks for more than 10 years, and I haven't changed them because of poverty. I train day and night, and the socks are almost padded. So much so that Uchiha Yuya couldn't help feeling sick when he saw the viscous liquid now. The ninja team led by a 2-year-old child is naturally eye-catching. All kinds of discussions never stopped from the moment Lee Jexuan came to the front line. However, Lee Jexuan didn't care. He stretched out his hand to lift the tent of Konoha's camp, and led the team straight in. Chunin Lee Jexuan, lead the team back to the camp. Every ninja squad that supports the front line must register at the camp, otherwise, who knows if you got cold feet. In the camp, Senju Tomona stood quietly in front of the strategic terrain map, and Hirozuru Sarutobi and Danzo stood beside him quietly. After waiting for a while, Chinshobe raised his head. His deep red eyes did not conceal his contempt for Lee Jexuan. You may be able to fool elder brother, but you cannot fool me. Chinsho Feijian's first impression of Lee Jexuan was really bad. If you want to gain fame through war, you've come to the wrong place. Chinsho Feijian pursed his lips in disdain, and arranged casually, you are responsible for defending the B4 area. If you flee without fighting, you will be subjected to a severe military trial. Without rebuttal, Lee Jexuan just quietly turned and left. If Chinsho Feijian doesn't like his words, no matter what he says, it doesn't make any sense. These little guys are doomed. That's the B4 area, a dead zone. None of the teams that defended that area last time failed to survive. Uchiha Yuya's face darkened because of everyone's discussion, and any fool can see that Lee Jexuan and Hokage-sama are not dealing with each other. It's miserable now. I have been tortured by Lee Jexuan. Lee Jexuan also gritted his teeth secretly. He didn't expect this guy from Chinshobejian to be so narrow-minded that he would cheat him in this kind of place. However, Konoha's situation seems to be very unfavorable. Opening up 4 battlefields at the same time puts too much pressure on Konoha. Sand Hidden Village is originally the most powerful ninja village except Konoha. This is also the reason why Chinsho Feijian sits here. But even so, they could only defend passively in the face of the attack from Hidden Sand Village. Although, the situation and history here are somewhat different, but the final result is the same. Konoha will hand over the other 8-tailed beasts, whether it is voluntary or forced, this ending will not change. So all he had to do was paddle. Stop the sand ninja from crossing the border, wait for Konoha to admit defeat, and hand over the tail beast, and everything will be fine. But as soon as Lee Jexuan walked out of the camp, the system couldn't wait to jump out. War mission. Those who offend Konoha will be punished even if they are far away. Task content. Kill the enemy ninja. Mission rewards. Kill a lower ninja to reward a primary treasure box, kill a Zongnin to reward an intermediate treasure box, and kill a Jonin to reward a high-level treasure box. Quote. The corner of Lee Jexuan's mouth couldn't help twitching fiercely, and he pulled out the Kusanagi sword from the system and roared righteously to the sky, for Konoha, I will die without regret. Hearing Lee Jexuan's impassioned shout, Chinsho curled his lips in disdain. In a few days, he will return to Konoha crying. Danzo repeatedly nodded in agreement, but Hirozuru Sarutobi smiled and shook his head lightly. On the contrary, he thought that Lee Jexuan might surprise them. The reason why the B4 defense zone is called the dead zone. The reason is simple. Empty space. I don't know why, but only this forest has been eroded by wind and sand, and the tallest tree is no more than 1 meter. Without any shelter, it is undoubtedly a disaster for the defender. What should we do? Hinata Masuzu looked around. The empty land made him very insecure. Here, I'm afraid we won't be able to defend for too long. Both physical and mental pressure are too great. Yamada Suhiro frowned and suggested, Captain, we should dig the bunker immediately, so that we may be able to persist. Among this team, only Yamada Suhiro was considered reliable. The suggestion of excavating the bunker can be described as old-fashioned and prudent. If it had been before the release of the system mission, Lee Jexuan might have nodded in agreement, but now. Very good suggestion. Lee Jexuan nodded in approval. Seeing this, Hinata Masuzu took out his shovel and wanted to start working. The white eyes of the Hyuga clan really have no advantage in such an open place, which makes Hyuga Masuzu feel very insecure. Tisk, coward. Uchiha Yu also curled his lips in disdain. As a member of the Uchiha clan, he is not afraid of death at all. But I don't like it. But in the end, Lee Jexuan shook his head and rejected the suggestion. Hearing this, Yamada Junzun raised his eyebrows in doubt. Then what are you going to do, Captain Yuxuan? How to do it? Lee Jexuan sneered and clenched his fists. I'm not in the habit of being beaten passively, I decided to take the initiative. Take the initiative to attack. Hearing this, everyone was shocked. Yamada Suhiro retorted even more unceremoniously. Now that the sand ninjas are dominant, our defense is weak, so how can we still attack? Lee Jexuan shook his head with a smile, stretched out his hand to take off his ninja forehead guard, took off his ninja suit skillfully, and put on a set of cute frog baby clothes. In just 10 seconds, Lee Jexuan turned into a baby still in its infancy. Wow! Lee Jexuan opened his mouth and cried loudly, this looks like an ordinary baby. Everyone was stunned, and they seemed to have just realized it. Lee Jexuan is not yet 2 years old, it's just that Lee Jexuan usually speaks and moves too much like an adult. As the saying goes, show the enemy's weakness and attack him unprepared. Lee Jexuan was wearing a cute baby frog costume, and taught, wars are fought with brains. I have to say that the ninja wars in this era are really rough. Don't pay attention to medical ninjas, don't pay attention to intelligence work, just surround ninjas together and fight head on. But forget it, these ninjas are fighting for the first time after all, so be tolerant. 10 minutes later, Lee Jexuan and his party were already standing in the Kingdom of Wind. Smoke curls up from the kitchen, this is a village for mortals. Hinata was rubbing his eyes tiredly, and the 10-minute perspective and telescopic technique was also a test for him, but for the sake of safety, there was nothing he could do about it. Yizu, squat down. Lee Jexuan suddenly waved to Yizu with some mysterious asahi. What? Although it was a bit inexplicable, Hinata Masuzu still squatted down according to Lee Jexuan's order. Thanks for your hard work. Lee Jexuan patted Hinata Masuzu on the shoulder lightly, then turned around. So, did you ask me to squat down just for you to pat on the shoulder? Hinata Masuzu suddenly felt more tired. Tired eyes and more tired heart. But, Captain Jexuan, these are ordinary people. Looking at the small village where the cooking smoke is rising, Hinata Masuzu feels a little bit unbearable. Xiao Jexuan, I also feel that this is not good. Even Matwei, who rarely spoke, frowned and dissuaded in a low voice, this may cause a bigger dispute. Uchiha Yuya stood aside indifferently. As a noble Uchiha clan, he didn't care about the lives of these civilians at all. What's more, this is a decision made by Lee Jexuan, and any troubles have nothing to do with him. Uchiha Yuya even expected Lee Jexuan to slaughter the entire village, so that this hateful guy would be finished. Yamada Suhiro also stood silently aside, didn't say anything, but the light of consideration flickered in his eyes from time to time. Of course not. Lee Jexuan tugged at the frog children's clothes on his body, curled his lips in disdain. There is no reward for killing these civilians, so I wouldn't do such a thankless thing. Then why are we here? Seeing Lee Jexuan's denial, everyone couldn't help being puzzled. Since you don't kill people, what are you doing to find this mortal village? Set fire. Lee Jexuan is decisive. ... Everyone was silent. After a long while, Hinata Masuzu asked nastily, is there any difference between the two? The former is to vent anger. Lee Jexuan grinned, his 8 white teeth gleaming in the sunlight. The latter is to lure snakes out of their holes. Lead the snake out of the hole. Everyone muttered to themselves with strange faces. On the border of the land of winds, in a village in distress. The strong man pushed open the door with a smile, and stood on the gate to say hello to Widow Lee next door. Xionglan, today is such a beautiful day. Yo, why is Brother Wong so courageous today? Quilin isn't at home. Widow Li stretched comfortably, her plump body stretched out in the sun. Not at home, that woman went to the market early in the morning. Brother Wong smiled and rubbed his hands, staring greedily at Widow Li. Since this is the case, Brother Wong will help me carry water when he is free. The water tanks at home are all dry. Widow Li smiled and winked at the man, her water snake-like waist twisted slightly, and her peach-like buttocks attracted people's attention like a magnet. What a goblin! Brother Wong just felt as if a ball of fire was burning, menacing and unstoppable. In a trance, he even seemed to smell the smell of burning flames. Suddenly, Widow Li's face changed, and she shouted in horror, "It's burning, it's burning." "Oh, you little fairy." Brother Wong grinned, raised his eyebrows and said with an evil smile, "I'm really on fire." Widow Li's anxious tears were about to come out. She jumped and shouted, "Fool, your house is on fire." "Huh, my house." Only then did Brother Wong realize that his back seemed to be on fire. He turned his head and saw that most of the room was already on fire. "It's over." Brother Wong stood there blankly. The fire in the room completely extinguished the fire in his heart. At this time, Li Jexuan and his group, who were hiding in the dark, involuntarily gave Uchiha Yuya a thumbs up. "Beautiful job. I just couldn't stand these two guys and set it on fire, not because of the captain." Uchiha Yuya turned his head arrogantly. "The flames of the Uchiha clan are not used for this kind of thing." We understand, we understand." Everyone nodded again and again, expressing their understanding. The Uchiha clan is arrogant and addicted, and the whole world knows it. The raging flames, the sky seemed to be burning red. "It's on fire, put out the fire." "My house." Brother Wong was crying like crazy, and the others grabbed him and comforted him. "Brother Wong, don't be impulsive, keep the green hills here, don't be afraid that there will be no firewood." Everyone managed to persuade Big Brother Wong, and suddenly, the whole village started to burst into flames, and the sudden flames could not be extinguished, and the source could not be found. "Oh, my house. If you kill $1,000, my house is also destroyed. Hurry up and put out the fire, my house." For a moment, everyone who was calm just now shouted in panic. Seeing this, Brother Wong was stunned for a moment, and stopped crying. Instead, he burst out laughing. "Ha ha ha, Lao Li, Xiao Zhang, don't be impulsive. If you keep the green hills, you won't be afraid of running out of firewood." What a dramatic scene. The fire in Wolang village is getting bigger and bigger. Even if the villagers are reluctant to part with their property, they can only flee far away. The blazing flames were surrounded by billowing smoke and dust, and they could be seen clearly even if they were hundreds of miles away. At the same time, the caves more than 50 kilometers away from Wolang village. "Captain, there seems to be something going on in Wolang village 50 miles away." "Okay." Doi Kaide, who is a senior chunin in Hidden Sand village, raised his eyebrows in confusion. "It looks like it's on fire, but it can't be completely ruled out that it's the fault of Konoha ninja." Doi Feifeng thought about it for a long time, and decided to send someone to take a look. "Matsukawa Koichi, go and have a look." Matsukawa Koichi is the defense master of their team, and he is extremely proficient in earth escape ninjutsu. Although he is a low-level ninja, the average Zongnin will definitely not be able to take him down without much effort. And this time is enough for him to issue an early warning message. Yes, Matsukawa Koichi not only looks simple and honest, but also has a very simple personality. After receiving the order, without saying anything, he turned around and walked out of the cave. Chakra twisted his legs and ran towards the village of Wolverine in the distance. It took only 10 minutes for Matsukawa Koichi to arrive at Wolang village. What's going on here? In just 10 minutes, an entire village cannot be burned cleanly. The villagers can only watch from a distance, not daring to approach. "I don't know, the house caught fire for no reason, and the fire can't be extinguished." Brother Wong sat on the ground in a daze, and looked around blankly. Then, the whole village burned. Hearing this, Matsukawa Koichi couldn't help frowning. "I thought it was just a simple fire case, but it doesn't sound like a simple accident." However, why did Konoha ninja set fire to the houses where civilians live? Apart from exacerbating the development of the situation, what is the benefit to Konoha? Hikaru Matsukawa couldn't figure it out. so he naturally decided to go deep into the fire scene to find out. Water escape, water entanglement. The chakras circulated, and 2 winding water columns quietly circulated around Matsukawa Koichi. It's a simple D-rank ninjutsu that barely wards off some burns. Avoiding the burning flames, Matsukawa Koichi smelled the obvious chakra breath. These flames are definitely not ordinary fires, but flames from ninjutsu. Wow, wow. When Matsukawa Koichi was thinking, a sudden cry of a baby interrupted his thinking. This is. Matsukawa followed the sound and found a 1-year-old baby crying in a corner of the fire scene. The little baby was lucky enough, the 3 thick beams intersected and blazed together, unexpectedly separated a small living space. Seeing this, Matsukawa Koichi walked over almost subconsciously. This has nothing to do with the status of ninjas and civilians, it is just an instinctive reaction of human nature. Survivors under catastrophe are always particularly distressing. What's more, this is still a citizen of his country of wind. Without these civilians, their ninjas would not have such a rich and well-fed life. In other words, the reason why the 5 great ninja villages are the 5 great ninja villages is because the 5 great nations are the 5 great nations. Without a country with strong assets, there is no way to support the ninja village, which costs a lot of money. Little guy, your luck is really good. Matsukawa smiled and stretched out his hand, hugging the baby in the flames. Don't cry, baby, what's your name? My name is. Lee Jexuan sobbed and grabbed Matsukawa Koichi's hand tightly, grinning violently, Grandpa Sand Ninja. What? Matsukawa Hikari's eyes widened, and his hand subconsciously wanted to seal. But before he could take any action, a sharp kunai pierced his heart. With a bang, Matsukawa Hikaru fell straight to the ground. Until he died, he didn't understand why a 2-year-old baby would kill him with a knife. Breaking away Matsukawa Koichi's stiff hands, Lee Jexuan pursed his lips in disdain. After waiting for so long, I only waited for a patient. What a waste of my acting skills. At the same time, Hinata Masuzu, who was several kilometers away, swallowed hard. It's solved. Defenseless, no one will guard against a baby who survives a disaster. Matsukawa Koichi almost sent himself to Lee Jexuan's suffering. He only killed 1 genocide, so Lee Jexuan naturally refused to give up easily. After disposing of Matsukawa Koichi's body, Lee Jexuan turned around and pushed aside the fire and squatted back. Seeing this, Hinata Masuzu in the distance couldn't help but twitch the corners of his mouth, and sighed. Captain, he squatted back again. Everyone looked at each other and sighed involuntarily. It's really despicable. And at this time, the cave 50 kilometers away. What's going on? Why hasn't Matsukawa Koichi come back yet? Doi Feifeng frowned too, feeling an inexplicable uneasiness in his heart. It should be all right, now Konoha dare not come out at all. The subordinates seemed very optimistic. It was so cool to have been pressing down on Konoha for so many days. After another 10 minutes, Doi Feng stood up too abruptly. Let's go and have a look. The Sand Ninjas bet almost all of their fortunes in this war, and there were 10 people in just 1 Chunin team, 2 Zongnin and 8 Genin. Only 1 Chunin and 3 Genin were left, and the others followed Doi Fengta to the Wolang village. When Mrs. Tu Feifeng arrived, Brother Wang was still sitting on the ground in a daze. When his mother-in-law comes back, he must be killed. What's going on here? Brother Wang took out the previous rhetoric and said it again. Doi Fengtai frowned. Where's the ninja who came before? The fire was still raging at the time, and he didn't come out after he went in. Did you hear the sound of fighting? No. Brother Wang nodded affirmatively. Hearing this, Doi Fengta frowned even tighter. No fighting sound. With Matsukawa Koichi's ability, it is absolutely impossible to be killed by Chunin silently. Is it Jonin? But soon, Doi Fengta took the initiative to deny this answer. If it's really Jonin, why bother to do such a meager method and charge over directly? With their strength, they can't resist it at all. Eliminate all possibilities, and the remaining one, no matter how unbelievable, must be the truth. Matsukawa Koichi was burned to death. After getting this answer, Doi Fengta and his party went straight into the fire scene. At this time, the flames were much smaller, and only a little embers of fire were still burning quietly in the house. They just searched around, but they couldn't find Matsukawa Koichi. But at this moment, a faint cry suddenly sounded. Wow wow, it seemed to be the cry of a baby, but the sound seemed very weak. Doi Fengta followed the sound to dig through the ruins, and unexpectedly found Matsukawa Koichi's body, but his body had been burned into a piece of coke now. A sharp beam passed straight through his chest, but this beam has been burnt to charcoal now, and its original shape cannot be seen. After picking apart Matsukawa Koichi's body, Lee Jexuan, who was covered in scars, opened his eyes blankly, and opened and closed his mouth weakly. "Uncle, don't leave me." Seeing this, the Iron Man wept, and the Buddha was sympathetic. Case solved. Matsukawa Koichi must have been saving the child. The end of the burnt beam fell down, piercing his heart directly. So, before dying, Matsukawa Koichi used his own body to prop up this small living space for this child. Matsukawa Koichi, well done. Everyone couldn't help admiring, although Matsukawa Koichi was usually a little taciturn. But, he is a great man. Hurry up and get the baby out. Doi Fifeng frowned too much. These gangsters didn't have any vision. The only female ninja in the team volunteered to hug Lee Jexuan out, and Lee Jexuan was shocked by her broad chest. Sure enough, 2 years old and 20 years old are completely different feelings. However, Lee Jexuan was not in a hurry. When Tsunade is 20 years old, Lee Jexuan may not be able to grasp both hands. It takes patience to raise a young girl, but what matters now is not easy. Lee Jexuan opened his eyes weakly, and stretched out his hand to the fat Tufei Fengtai. "Guangyi, uncle. This child, don't want a beauty, but an uncle." Everyone was stunned, and the female ninja holding Lee Jexuan felt a little wronged. She has such a broad mind, and the children like it very much. He should have regarded me as Matsukawa Koichi. Tu Fifeng nodded triumphantly. "Good boy, you have eyes, let uncle hug you." "Uncle Guangyi." Lee Jexuan stretched out his arms with anticipation on his face, and grabbed Doi Futa's arm fiercely. Feeling the strength coming from his arm, Tu Fifeng couldn't help being stunned. This kid is so powerful. However, Mrs. Tu Fifeng didn't take it seriously. She just thought it was Lee Jexuan who was excited for a while, and hugged Lee Jexuan affectionately. "Little guy, your uncle Guangyi has gone far away, and you will never see him again. It's so gentle, Captain. Captain, I was so moved that I cried." It was supposed to be a warm and joyous moment for the whole family, but Lee Jexuan suddenly nodded coldly. "I know." "What?" Tu Fifeng looked at Lee Jexuan too puzzled. He was not sure what he heard. Puff. The sudden sharp kunai pierced Doi Futa's heart fiercely. Lee Jexuan gently pushed Doi Fengta away, grinning lightly. "I won't see him anymore, but I'm going to send you to see him." Art Fire Escape Ho Fireball. Before Lee Jexuan landed on the ground, he sprayed out a mouthful of hot flames. The huge fireball instantly covered the two ninjas. At the same time, Lee Jexuan's wrist trembled slightly. Time and space kunai is like a nimble little fish, piercing through the neck of a ninja. In an instant, Lee Jexuan instantly killed 4 people, including 1 Zongnin and 3 Genin. The remaining 3 ninja finally came back to their senses at this time. Wind done, a big breakthrough. The female ninja reacted the fastest, opening her mouth and spitting out a huge wheel. "I'll restrain him, you guys hurry up." Although the wind escape breakthrough is not very lethal, the strong pulling force of the wind group can firmly pull people in place. Wind escape, wind acupuncture. The 2 ninjas spit out 2 sharp wind needles from their mouths almost at the same time. The wind needles are not only fast, but also have amazing penetrating power. Lee Jexuan was swayed left and right by the wind group of the big breakthrough, unable to stabilize the seal. With the power of Lee Jexuan Chunin, it is still too reluctant to fight 7 against 1. But just when everyone thought they had succeeded. "Don't even think about hurting my captain." Hanada Masuzu arrived in time, raised his palms flat, and spun violently. "Go back to heaven." The light blue semicircle rotated back to the sky array, and the flying wind needles were defeated one after another, turning into a ray of breeze and dissipating. "Nice job." With a fierce wave of Lee Jexuan's hand, the wind group of the big breakthrough was completely defeated, surrounded by light green chakra steam. After opening the door of life, Lee Jexuan finally got rid of the storm of this big breakthrough. Seeing this, those broad-minded female servants still did not give up, and gritted their teeth. "There are only 2 people, if you use that trick, you may not necessarily lose." Wind escape, the wind kills the formation. A terrifying tornado rose from the ground and rolled straight towards Lee Jexuan. After using this trick, Ninja was exhausted. with the strength of her forbearance, using this move is already doing her best. The power of B-level ninjutsu. Li Jexuan frowned involuntarily. Wind-killing formation is a kind of ninjutsu that varies from person to person. The stronger the performer, the higher the intensity of ninjutsu. There is no way, since this is the case, Li Jexuan can only use that trick. Turn it, Hinata Masuzu. What? Hinata Masuzu widened his eyes in confusion. What exactly was the captain talking about? Use it quickly. Huishin is a 360-degree defensive ninjutsu with no dead ends. There is a song describing the Hyuga clan like this: spin and jump, I close my eyes. The light blue Huishin formation spun silently in the tornado, unable to move half a step forward for a while. Seeing that the wind and sand could not threaten Li Jexuan, the sons and daughters of Danai glared at Li Jexuan fiercely, and shouted at the other two subordinates, "Kill this guy. She must kill this shameless guy." Li Jexuan not only killed the captain and teammates, but more importantly, deceived their sincere feelings. Wind escape, wind acupuncture. Without any hesitation, the two renunciants formed seals with both hands, intending to forcibly kill Li Jexuan. However, before they could finish the seal, a purple phantom suddenly came out from behind the two ninjas. Midway grabbed the wrists of the two ninjas and said with a sneer, "What do you two guys want to do to Xiao Jexuan?" Twisted hard, only to hear a crisp crack, and the arms of the two genin folded in half like clothes hangers at an exaggerated angle. The light green chakra steam is surging, and the Madwi who has opened the three gates has the power of a Chunin level. Another Chunin. The female ninja bit her lip hard. Although she really wanted to kill that shameless baby, her defeat was already over. At least, I'm going to use spiritism to spread the news. Danaizi held back her anger, used up the last bit of chakra in her body, and wrote the whole thing on the scroll, but she didn't wait for her to complete the psychic. Puff! A sharp knife pierced her heart. Uchiha Yuya stood behind the ninja with a pale face, his eyes widened with uncontrollable fear after killing. Good job. Li Jexuan patted Hinata Masuzu on the shoulder. Try to turn around longer next time. Hinata Masuzu nodded drowsily. I will work hard. What a cute kid. Li Jexuan nodded with a smile, but when he turned his head and saw Yuya Uchiha, Li Jexuan couldn't help but put on a straight face, and snorted coldly, "You killed that big Nikosa." Uchiha Yuya with a pale face suppressed his fear and nodded tremblingly. That's the enemy, even if it's a woman, I will kill her. Hearing this brave voice, Yamada Suhiro, who was sorting out the medical box, couldn't help shaking his head. This child is obviously terribly scared. How arrogant. Uchiha is really a big fool. Who told you this? Li Jexuan squeezed his fists and grinned at Uchiha Yuya. I mean, don't kill people with a knife next time, just beat them disabled, save it for me to kill. What? Uchiha Yuya's eyes widened in horror. At that moment, Li Jexuan's grinning mouth seemed to become the entrance to hell. The bright red gums and white teeth seemed to fuse together, making it extraordinarily terrifying. Remember, next time, let me come in this situation. Li Jexuan waved his hand angrily. The people of the Uchiha clan are really fools, wasting his primary treasure chest for nothing. If there is a reward for killing teammates, Li Jexuan can't wait to chop this guy alive with a single knife, to see if he can explode a treasure chest. As soon as Li Jexuan turned around and left, Uchiha Yu suddenly lowered his head and vomited profusely. Extreme fear often produces physiological reactions such as vomiting or cramps. This guy Uchiha Yuya usually blows cowhide loudly, it really kills people, shaking like a quail. After a long while, Uchiha Yuya slowly came back to his senses, trembling slightly with lingering fear. Devil, devil. Before he knew it, Li Jexuan's cruel and ferocious smile had left a deep imprint on his heart. Seeing this, Yamada Haruhiro couldn't help frowning. He never expected that Li Jexuan would be such a bloodthirsty person. But until a few days later, Li Jexuan pretended to be a baby and killed 4 Chunin and 12 genin respectively. It was only after Yamada Junzun discovered that Li Jexuan was not bloodthirsty. It's just that there is a quirk. If possible, he will kill the opponent with his own hands. Once, Midway had already dented the chest of that ninja, and he was about to die, but Li Jexuan excitedly went up to fix it. But if it is not necessary, Li Jexuan will never kill indiscriminately. For example, the villagers in the Wolf Embarrassment village before, except for the loss of some property, none of them died. Li Jexuan, What kind of person are you? Yamada Haruhiro shook his head slightly distressed, as if he was making some unknown decision. Everyone, it's time to go back. Lee Jexuan took off a ninja bag from a ninja corpse, and nodded with a smile. This time I'm out to play wild for a small profit, and I'll go home to develop a wave first. Having been with Lee Jexuan for a long time, they also know that Lee Jexuan often says some strange things. However, where is this called making a small profit? It was a total victory. Seriously speaking, in their 5-member team, there were only 4 of them with combat effectiveness. In this case, they still brutally killed 5 Chunin and dozens of Genin. In the process, they haven't even encountered any decent danger. No one would guard against a baby under the age of 2. Lee Jexuan alone can often kill the opponent's Chunin and 1 or 2 Genin in an instant. In this case, the other party only had 3 or 2 big cats and kittens remaining, and they couldn't even send out a distress signal. Recently there have been rumors circulating among sand ninjas. Konoha has a team of mysterious top ninjas who are secretly hunting down sand-hidden ninjas and lone ninjas. Otherwise, they would have no way to explain why the large Chunin team couldn't send out a distress signal. A lot of people were killed, and Lee Jexuan got a lot of rewards. There are a total of 20 primary treasure chests and 5 intermediate treasure chests. All on. After a burst of fluorescent light, Lee Jexuan produced 18 more bottles of energy medicine. Apart from the energy potion, 2 very weird scrolls were also released from the primary treasure chest this time. A random psychic beast scroll. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.